You've been told that life should stay the same, that stability is the key to happiness. But if that were true, why do so many people feel stuck in the same old routine, trapped in their own lives? Why do we hold on so tightly to things, thinking they'll bring us peace, only to feel emptier when they change or slip away? The truth is, nothing stays the same. Change is the only constant, the only thing we can truly count on. And yet, we fight it, we fear it, we resist it. Buddhism teaches us a different way. Instead of running from change, it invites us to embrace it, to see it not as a threat, but as an opportunity to grow. Through Buddhist teachings, you'll learn to stop clinging to the past, to stop worrying about the future, and to live fully in the present. It's not about controlling life, but about learning to flow with it. Tonight, as you listen to these lessons, something inside you will shift. You'll begin to see that peace doesn't come from avoiding change, but from accepting it. The weight of resistance will start to lift, and with it, your mind will feel lighter. You'll wake up tomorrow not afraid of what's to come, but ready to embrace it, stronger, wiser, at peace with the inevitable. This isn't just another video about finding calm in chaos. This is about learning to dance with life's ever-changing rhythm. Are you ready? Let's begin. It's something we all experience, isn't it? That deep-rooted desire for stability, for certainty. The need to know that things in our lives will remain the same, unchanging, safe. We think that if we just keep things steady, if we can just avoid the unpredictable, we'll find peace. But that very need for permanence, that insistence on control, is the very thing that keeps us stuck, locked in a loop of worry and fear. We've been taught to hold on tightly to what we know, to cling to what feels familiar. Our jobs, relationships, possessions, routines, they become the anchors we think will keep us grounded. But what happens when life doesn't care about our anchors? What happens when the things we thought would last forever begin to slip through our fingers, like sand on a windy day? The truth is, we can never hold on forever. And when we try, we only create our own suffering. Buddhism teaches us that the more we grasp at things, the more we become trapped in the illusion that things are meant to stay the same. This illusion is like a mirage, constantly shifting, always out of reach. The real lesson, the one that can set us free, is understanding that the only constant in life is change itself. That's the key to true freedom, accepting the impermanence of everything around us, instead of clinging to the idea that things should stay the same. Most of us are afraid of change because it challenges our sense of control. We find comfort in knowing what to expect, in creating a predictable world around us. But the truth is, we can't control everything, and we're not meant to. Holding on to the illusion of permanence is like building a house on sand. No matter how strong the walls seem, they're always vulnerable to the shifting tides of life. So, what if we let go of this need for certainty? What if, instead of fearing change, we accepted it for what it is, a natural, unavoidable part of life? Buddhism doesn't just teach us to accept change, it teaches us to embrace it, to see the flow of life as something beautiful and fluid, rather than something to fear. When we stop expecting things to remain the same, we open ourselves up to a new way of experiencing the world, one that's free of the constant weight of anxiety and resistance. Change is an inevitable part of the human experience, and in our efforts to avoid it, we often find ourselves stuck in cycles of stress, frustration, and disappointment. We might spend years chasing after a perfect job, an ideal relationship, or an image of ourselves that we can never quite reach. But why? Because we believe that these things will give us lasting happiness. We think that if we just make the right decisions, secure the right things, everything will stay stable. But it never does. Life is always moving, always shifting. Buddhism's perspective on this is clear. The more we try to control, the more we suffer. By trying to grasp at things, to hold on to them with everything we have, we build up walls around ourselves, walls that prevent us from truly living in the moment. It's in these walls that anxiety thrives. We're constantly looking to the past, clinging to what was, or worrying about the future, anticipating what may or may not come. But all of this is rooted in the illusion of permanence. We fool ourselves into thinking that we can control the ebb and flow of life. The first step to breaking free from this cycle is recognizing the illusion for what it is. The idea that we can keep things unchanged forever is just that, an illusion. And like any illusion, once we see through it, it loses its power over us. This doesn't mean we stop caring about the things we love or that we let go of our goals and dreams. It simply means that we stop treating them as though they are permanent. We start to understand that everything is in constant motion, and that's not something to fear, but something to accept. In Buddhism, the concept of impermanence, or anicca, is central. It teaches us that nothing, not even our thoughts, emotions, or physical experiences, is permanent. Everything is in a constant state of flux. This realization can be unsettling at first, but it's also incredibly freeing. Once we accept that nothing lasts forever, we stop clinging to the illusion of permanence. We can begin to live more fully in the present moment, appreciating what we have without attaching to it as though it's the final version of our lives. In fact, when we stop attaching to things, we begin to experience them more deeply because we no longer take them for granted. The idea that permanence brings us peace is deeply ingrained in our culture. We're taught to build our lives around what seems stable, our jobs, our homes, our relationships, and to hold on to these things as tightly as we can. But what happens when we lose them? When the house we've built falls down? When the relationships we've relied on change? When the stability we've spent years cultivating disappears? We panic. We feel lost. We wonder what went wrong. But the truth is, nothing ever really went wrong. Change was always there, beneath the surface, waiting to unfold. Buddhism doesn't teach us to avoid change. It doesn't promise us a life of unchanging happiness or eternal success. Instead, it teaches us to accept change as part of the natural order. Change isn't something to fear or fight against, it's something to be embraced. It's what keeps life fresh, interesting, and alive. And by understanding and accepting this, we free ourselves from the constant grip of anxiety and fear. The process of letting go of the need for permanence is like shedding an old skin. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but once we let go, we can finally breathe. We realize that we don't need to control everything. We don't need to hold on to every moment, every experience, every person. Instead, we can let life unfold as it will, knowing that whatever comes will bring with it new lessons, new opportunities, and new possibilities. In our journey through life, we often encounter moments where change feels overwhelming, where the ground beneath us seems to shift without warning. But instead of resisting, we can begin to welcome these changes with open arms. We can learn to let go of our expectations and allow life to show us the path forward, step by step. The beauty of Buddhism lies in its simplicity. The more we accept the impermanence of life, the more peace we find. When we stop fighting against the flow of life, we can start to ride its waves. We become more adaptable, more resilient. We stop seeing change as something to avoid and start seeing it as an opportunity for growth. It's not about avoiding loss or hardship, it's about learning how to navigate those moments with grace, knowing that they, too, will pass. As we explore this deeper understanding of impermanence, we begin to realize that true peace doesn't come from holding on to things, but from learning to let them go. It's in the act of release that we find freedom. Freedom from the weight of expectations, freedom from the pressure to control every aspect of our lives. When we let go, we open ourselves up to the beauty of the present moment, and in doing so, we find true happiness not in what we have, but in how we are willing to let it all flow. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. Change is a gift, a reminder that life is always moving, always evolving. By seeing through the illusion of permanence, we can learn to live more fully, to experience life in all its ups and downs, and to find peace amidst the inevitable transitions that shape our journey. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a practical way of living. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we can approach life with a lighter heart, less burdened by the weight of expectation. We can begin to appreciate the moments as they come, without clinging to them or fearing their passing. And in doing so, we find that the more we let go, the more life gives us in return. So, the next time life begins to shift, when the world around you seems to change without warning, remember this: it's not the change itself that causes suffering, it's our resistance to it. By learning to flow with life's constant changes, we begin to find peace in the very thing we once feared. And in this peace, we find freedom. As we've just explored, the illusion of permanence keeps us tethered to an ever-changing world, creating stress, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness. The need to control, to hold on tightly to what we know, gives us a false sense of security. We grasp, clutching at moments, people, and circumstances, thinking that if we hold on just a little longer, everything will stay stable. But what if the key to true peace lies not in holding on, but in learning to let go? This is where the Buddhist teachings take a radical turn. Rather than finding comfort in control, we are invited to embrace life as it is, flowing with the current instead of swimming against it. Letting go is not about surrendering to life in a passive way, but about releasing the need for domination over it. It's about accepting what comes and going with the flow, without resistance, without expectation. It's a radical shift in perspective, one that is not just a philosophical idea, but a deeply transformative practice. At the heart of Buddhism is the recognition that our suffering is often born out of attachment. We attach ourselves to the idea that things should be a certain way, that our experiences and relationships should stay fixed and unchanging. But this attachment, this constant need to grasp, doesn't create stability, it creates anxiety. The more we cling to something, the more fearful we become of losing it. This fear then drives us to hold on tighter, perpetuating a cycle of stress and suffering. When we talk about letting go, it's easy to think of it as a momentary action. We let go of an object, a thought, or a desire. But Buddhism teaches us that letting go is a way of being. It's a mindset. It's an ongoing process of releasing our grip on the world's impermanence and accepting that we are not the ones who dictate the flow of life. Life unfolds in ways we can't always predict, and in trying to control it, we set ourselves up for frustration. In the Western world, we are taught that success comes from hard work and control. We are encouraged to plan, structure, and manipulate our lives to fit a certain mold. This mindset, while useful in some areas, often leads us down a path where we mistakenly believe that our happiness lies in control. In the Buddhist tradition, however, happiness does not come from controlling the outcome, but from our response to life as it is. The practice of letting go starts with understanding that our attachment to control comes from a deep sense of insecurity. We fear that if we don't hold tightly to things, we'll lose them. This fear arises from the belief that our worth or our peace depends on external circumstances. But what if peace was already within us? What if, instead of waiting for the world to align with our desires, we learned to align ourselves with the world as it is? Buddhism teaches that letting go is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to passivity. It's about giving up the belief that we can control everything and recognizing that life's flow is not something to fight against, but something to join. By letting go of the desire to control, we stop resisting the natural rhythms of life. We stop struggling against change and instead begin to move with it. This practice of letting go doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. It doesn't mean we stop caring about the things we love or the goals we've set for ourselves. Instead, it means that we engage with life more deeply, without the weight of expectation or the fear of losing control. We invest in what matters to us, but without clinging to the idea that it should remain the same forever. One of the key concepts in Buddhism is non-attachment, but this doesn't mean we become detached or indifferent to life. It means that we are able to fully engage with life, appreciating it as it comes, without needing it to stay the same. Non-attachment is a form of freedom. It's the freedom to experience life without the pressure of expectation. It's the freedom to love, to create, to work, and to live without constantly fearing the loss of what we hold dear. But how do we begin to let go of this control? The first step is awareness. We need to recognize the areas in our lives where we are gripping tightly, where we are trying to force outcomes or make things fit a specific mold. This could be in our work, in our relationships, or even in our own self-image. These are the areas where attachment has taken root, where we feel that we must control in order to feel safe or secure. The next step is cultivating acceptance. This is not acceptance in the sense of resignation, but rather acceptance of the present moment as it is. It's acknowledging that while we can influence our lives, we cannot control every outcome. The more we resist life's flow, the more it resists us. But when we accept life as it is, its unpredictability, its ups and downs, we begin to move with it, rather than against it. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness plays a central role in this process. Through mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts, feelings, and reactions without judgment or attachment. When we are able to step back and observe our inner world, we create space between ourselves and our emotions. This space allows us to respond with clarity rather than reacting out of fear or desire. In this space, we find the freedom to let go of the need for control. Letting go also involves surrendering our attachment to outcomes. We often get caught in the trap of thinking that we can dictate the results of our actions. But life doesn't always unfold according to our plans. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't work out the way we expect. In these moments, we have a choice. We can fight against reality, or we can surrender to it. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up on our dreams or ambitions. It means releasing our attachment to the idea that life should unfold a certain way. It means letting go of the need for things to be predictable and allowing ourselves to trust in the process of life. When we let go of our attachment to specific outcomes, we open ourselves to a broader range of possibilities. We stop limiting ourselves to a narrow path and instead allow life to show us new and unexpected opportunities. But letting go isn't always easy. Our minds are wired to resist change, to hold on to what feels safe and familiar. The fear of uncertainty can be overwhelming. We worry about what might happen if we let go. Will we lose everything? Will we be left with nothing? These are the questions that arise when we start to let go. But the truth is, the more we hold on, the more we suffer. The tighter we grasp, the more we risk losing. Buddhism teaches us that letting go is not a loss, it's a liberation. It's the freedom to move with life's natural rhythm, to experience each moment fully, without being weighed down by expectations. When we let go of the need for control, we find that life becomes more fluid, more vibrant, more alive. As we practice letting go, we start to notice that the things we once feared losing no longer have the same power over us. We begin to see that our happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances. It doesn't depend on getting everything right or making everything perfect. Instead, our happiness comes from our ability to be at peace with what is, to accept the ever-changing nature of life, and to flow with it. Through this process, we also learn that letting go doesn't mean being passive or detached. It means being deeply engaged with life, but without attachment to outcomes. It means showing up fully in each moment, giving our best effort, but trusting that whatever happens, we will be okay. This is the radical shift that Buddhism encourages us to embrace. Instead of clinging to what we can't control, we learn to let go and trust in life's natural flow. This shift brings a sense of peace and freedom that nothing else can provide. In the end, letting go is not about surrendering to a passive existence. It's about becoming more alive, more present, and more open to life's possibilities. It's about trusting that, even in the midst of uncertainty, we can find peace. This is the true power of letting go, the freedom to live fully without the need for control or certainty, and to embrace life as it unfolds. Letting go is the path to inner peace. It's the gateway to freedom, the key to experiencing life in its truest, most vibrant form. When we stop fighting against the flow of life, we find ourselves in harmony with it, and that is where true happiness begins. As we've just seen, the need to control and resist change can keep us trapped in a never-ending cycle of fear and anxiety. We hold on to what we know, grasping for stability, and in doing so, we miss the beauty of the present moment. Letting go of the need to control is an essential step in freeing ourselves, but it's only part of the journey. The true freedom comes from learning to live fully in the moment right here, right now, without clinging to the past or fearing the future. Buddhism teaches us that the only true constant is change. Every moment, every breath is an opportunity for something new to unfold. When we stop fixating on what was or what might be, we can begin to truly experience the richness of the present. The moment we are in right now is the only one we have. It's where life is happening, and it's where we can find peace. This idea is the heart of Buddhist practice, living fully in the present, without distraction or attachment. Many of us spend so much time thinking about the past, reliving old memories, or worrying about the future, that we miss the moment right in front of us. We let our minds race ahead, chasing after what's next, without realizing that the present is all we ever truly have. The concept of the eternal present in Buddhism is a powerful reminder that the past and the future are simply constructs of the mind. The only reality is what's happening right now. To truly embrace this, we must stop fighting the current of time and start flowing with it. Life moves quickly, and every moment is a new opportunity to engage with what's happening without resistance. It's easy to get caught up in the cycle of planning, preparing, and trying to predict the future. But Buddhism teaches us that no matter how much we try to control the future, we can never fully know what's ahead. The only thing we can control is how we engage with the present moment. When we learn to fully embrace the present, we begin to experience life more deeply. Every conversation, every experience, becomes richer when we are fully present for it. We stop worrying about what might go wrong and start focusing on what is happening right now. This shift in focus can transform the way we experience the world, allowing us to connect more deeply with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us. Buddhism offers a profound tool for cultivating this kind of presence: mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with openness, curiosity, and non-judgment. It's about bringing our full attention to whatever we are doing, whether it's eating, walking, or simply breathing. Through mindfulness, we train ourselves to let go of distractions and to be fully engaged with the task at hand. This practice of mindfulness is not about achieving perfection or getting it right. It's about embracing each moment as it comes, accepting it without judgment or expectation. Whether we are experiencing joy or pain, success or failure, mindfulness helps us stay grounded in the present. It reminds us that whatever we are experiencing is temporary, just like everything else in life. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we can engage with each moment more freely, without clinging or resisting. Living fully in the moment also means letting go of the constant need for validation. We often measure our worth by external standards, how much we accomplish, how others perceive us, what we have. But Buddhism teaches us that these external markers are fleeting. Our true value comes from within, from our ability to be present, to be compassionate, and to engage with the world from a place of inner peace. When we stop seeking approval from others or striving for external success, we can begin to find happiness in the present moment simply by being who we are. The power of the present moment is that it is always available to us. No matter what we are going through, we can always return to the now. This doesn't mean that we ignore the past or future. It simply means that we stop allowing them to dominate our experience. We can reflect on the past with gratitude and learn from it, but we don't need to dwell on it. We can plan for the future, but we don't need to obsess over what might happen. The present moment is where life is unfolding, and when we are present for it, we find peace. The Buddha himself taught that the present moment is where true freedom lies. When we are fully engaged with life as it is, without attachment or fear, we experience freedom from the past and the future. This is not a freedom that comes from controlling life, but a freedom that comes from accepting it. When we stop trying to change what is happening right now, we open ourselves to the possibility of deeper peace and joy. To fully engage with the present, we must cultivate an attitude of acceptance. Life will always be in flux, people will come and go, circumstances will change, and things won't always go the way we expect. But instead of resisting this change, we can learn to accept it. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means allowing things to be as they are, without trying to force them into a mold of our making. It means being okay with uncertainty, with not knowing what's next. When we accept the present moment, we stop fighting against the flow of life. Instead of struggling to control everything, we allow ourselves to flow with it. We become more adaptable, more resilient, and more able to handle whatever life throws our way. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom, the ability to be fully present, fully engaged, and fully at peace, regardless of what is happening around us. The eternal present is not a passive state. It's an active engagement with life as it unfolds. It's about being awake, aware, and fully alive in each moment. It's about letting go of distractions and immersing ourselves in whatever we are doing, whether it's work, relationships, or simply enjoying a quiet moment to ourselves. When we embrace the present, we stop waiting for the next big thing to make us happy. Instead, we start to find joy in the here and now, knowing that this is all we truly have. Buddhism teaches that every moment is an opportunity for growth and transformation. Every moment, no matter how small, contains the potential for wisdom, compassion, and understanding. By fully embracing the present, we open ourselves up to these possibilities. We stop looking for happiness in the future and start experiencing it in the present. Living in the moment also means letting go of the need for perfection. We often resist the present because it doesn't look the way we think it should. We want things to be different, better, or more in line with our expectations. But Buddhism teaches us that perfection is an illusion. The present moment, with all its imperfections, is perfect exactly as it is. When we stop trying to force life to fit into a box, we can begin to see the beauty in its natural flow. By embracing the eternal present, we let go of the need for constant striving, We stop chasing after goals that we think will bring us happiness and start finding contentment in the present moment. This shift in mindset is revolutionary. Instead of constantly seeking something else, we start to appreciate what we already have. And in this appreciation, we find peace. Buddhism encourages us to live fully in the present, not just for our own peace of mind, but for the benefit of others as well. When we are present, we are able to connect more deeply with those around us. We listen more attentively, speak more kindly, and act with more compassion. Our presence becomes a gift to others, a reminder that we are all interconnected and that the present moment is where we can find true connection. When we stop resisting the flow of life, we begin to experience the fullness of our existence. We stop waiting for the perfect moment to arrive and start living in the moment that is here. The eternal present is where life is happening. And when we embrace it, we unlock the true potential of our existence. It is in the present moment that we find peace, joy, and freedom, not in the past, not in the future, but right here, right now. So, as we continue on this journey of acceptance and presence, remember that the only moment that truly matters is the one we're in. This is where we find our power, our peace, and our true selves. The present moment is not just where we live, it is where we grow, where we connect, and where we find the freedom to be. And once we realize this, everything else falls into place. The moment we stop trying to force life into a rigid mold, we start to see its true beauty, its flow, its rhythm, its movement. We've spent so much time thinking of life as a straight line, a path we must follow from point A to point B, that we forget it's more like a dance than a journey. Life isn't meant to be controlled or predicted. It's meant to be experienced, moment by moment, step by step. This shift in perspective is where true freedom begins. When we view life as a dance fluid and ever-evolving rather than a fixed, unchanging path, we let go of the anxiety that comes with trying to control every step. No longer do we worry about the right way to move or where the next step will take us. Instead, we simply flow with the music of life, trusting that each movement is leading us exactly where we need to go. The notion that life is a fixed path often keeps us stuck, creating stress and confusion as we strive for outcomes that are beyond our control. We're taught that success follows a specific route, that happiness can be found at a particular destination, but that belief creates a narrow view of life. It's a mindset that keeps us on edge, constantly anxious about making the right decisions, staying on course, and reaching the end goal. However, when we begin to see life as a dance, the pressure of getting it right fades away. Instead of focusing on the destination, we start to embrace the movement itself, the twists, the turns, the pauses, and the shifts. It's in these moments of fluidity that we find our true rhythm. Buddhism offers us a way to approach life's ever-changing nature with grace and ease. Through the practice of mindfulness and acceptance, we are invited to stop resisting the rhythm of life and start moving with it. The fluidity of change doesn't have to be something we fear. It can be something we embrace. Just as a dancer adapts to the music, we too can adapt to the flow of life, trusting that the rhythm will guide us where we need to go. The idea of life as a dance isn't just a poetic concept, it's a practical one. When we see life as something dynamic rather than something static, we open ourselves up to the beauty of each moment. We stop obsessing over where we should be and start enjoying where we are. Each step, each turn, becomes part of a larger pattern, a rhythm that moves us forward without the need for rigid control. This mindset helps us move through life with more ease. When we think of life as a path, we can become overwhelmed with the idea that we must follow it perfectly or risk going off course. But a dance doesn't have a fixed path. It has fluid movements that follow the music's lead. In the same way, life's changes are not obstacles to be avoided, but opportunities to follow the rhythm of change, no matter where it leads. In Buddhist teachings, this fluidity is reflected in the concept of anicca impermanence. Change is constant, and everything is in a state of flux. But rather than resisting or fearing this constant change, Buddhism teaches us to flow with it. When we accept the reality of impermanence, we stop trying to control every detail. Instead, we let life unfold, knowing that we will adapt as it does. This adaptability is the key to finding peace in the midst of uncertainty. One of the most liberating aspects of seeing life as a dance is that it frees us from the need to have everything figured out. In a dance, no one knows exactly what will happen with every step. There's an element of spontaneity, of surprise. And in life, there are moments that will take us by surprise too. But when we trust the dance, when we let go of the need to know every step in advance, we become more open to what life brings. We no longer live in constant anxiety about making the right decisions. We trust that whatever happens, we can adapt and move with it. This shift in thinking also helps us understand that life's challenges are not failures or mistakes. They are part of the dance. The missteps, the moments of confusion, the unexpected turns, all of these are part of the rhythm that moves us forward. A dancer doesn't stop when they miss a step, they flow with it, adjust, and continue. In life, we can do the same. Instead of resisting mistakes or setbacks, we can view them as part of the process. Moments that teach us how to move better, how to be more aware, and how to grow. In Buddhism, this idea is reinforced by the concept of non-attachment. We are not meant to cling to specific outcomes or to the way things should be. Life, like a dance, is constantly shifting. And when we try to hold on to a particular moment or goal, we create tension. We are not meant to force life into a particular shape. We are meant to move with it. This doesn't mean we don't have goals or intentions, but it means we hold them lightly. We move with life, adjusting as we go, instead of trying to make everything fit into a rigid structure. As we continue to see life as a fluid dance, we begin to notice how much more connected we feel to the present moment. When we let go of the need for perfection or control, we become more present in our lives. We experience life in a deeper, more fulfilling way, because we are not always thinking ahead or holding on to what has passed. We are simply moving with life, moment by moment, step by step. One of the greatest gifts of this perspective is the peace that comes with letting go of resistance. When we stop fighting against the flow of life, we begin to experience more joy and freedom. The anxiety that often accompanies change starts to dissolve. Instead of fearing what's next, we begin to see change as an opportunity to grow, to adapt, and to become more in tune with life's rhythm. This idea of life as a dance is not just about finding peace in change, but also about finding joy in it. Dance is not just a way to move, it's a way to express ourselves. When we view life as a dance, we open ourselves to the possibility of self-expression in every moment. Each decision, each challenge, each experience becomes an opportunity to express who we are and how we move through the world. There's freedom in that, there's creativity, there's life. But just like in any dance, we must be willing to let go of perfection. A dancer doesn't get every move exactly right, and neither do we. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often imperfect. But when we let go of our attachment to perfection, we allow ourselves to be more spontaneous, more creative, and more alive. We let the music of life move us, and in doing so, we find a sense of rhythm that carries us through the most challenging moments. In the Buddhist tradition, the practice of mindfulness helps us tune into this rhythm. By staying present in the moment, we learn to feel the flow of life. Mindfulness teaches us to move with life's current, to notice the subtle shifts and changes, and to adjust without fear or hesitation. It's through mindfulness that we cultivate the awareness necessary to truly engage with the dance of life. Life is not about finding the perfect path or making the right choices all the time. It's about learning to move with what comes. It's about finding your rhythm, your flow, and trusting that as you move with the music, you will be led to exactly where you need to go. As we begin to embrace life's fluidity, we start to see that every moment is a new opportunity to dance. We stop holding on to the past and stop worrying about the future. We simply move, step by step, with the flow of life. We experience the joy of spontaneity, the freedom of letting go, and the beauty of simply being present in the dance. This perspective of life as a dance allows us to cultivate a deeper sense of trust in the process. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the unpredictability of change, we begin to feel supported by it. Just as a dancer trusts the music, we trust life itself. We know that each movement, each step, is part of a greater rhythm, and that we are always exactly where we need to be. In the end, life is not about striving for perfection. It's about embracing the dance, with all its shifts, its turns, its pauses, and its rhythms. When we learn to move with life, rather than against it, we find peace, joy, and freedom. We let go of the need for control and open ourselves up to the beauty of each moment, knowing that the dance is always unfolding, always moving, always evolving. And in this dance, we find our true selves. As we've just explored, seeing life as a fluid dance rather than a fixed path allows us to embrace change without fear. But there's another crucial aspect to this transformation: uncertainty. So often, we are told that life should be predictable, that we should have clear answers and secure plans. But what if the very thing we fear most, uncertainty, was actually the doorway to profound wisdom? Buddhism teaches us that uncertainty is not a weakness or a threat, but a powerful force for growth. The wisdom of not knowing opens our minds and hearts, allowing us to let go of rigid expectations and control. It's in the unknown, the spaces between what we think we understand and what is yet to be revealed, that true wisdom begins to unfold. When we let go of the need to have all the answers, we allow ourselves the freedom to learn, to grow, and to experience life with an open heart. So often, we get caught in the trap of needing certainty. We think that knowing the future or having a solid plan will bring us peace. But in reality, trying to control the unknown creates more anxiety, because it's simply impossible to predict what will happen. Life is fluid, unpredictable, and constantly changing. Trying to impose a rigid structure on this ever-shifting world only leaves us feeling more stressed, more fearful, and more disconnected from the natural flow of life. Buddhism teaches us that the key to peace lies not in knowing everything, but in accepting that we cannot know it all. The wisdom of not knowing invites us to step into the present moment with a sense of openness, curiosity, and acceptance. Instead of fearing the uncertainty of life, we are encouraged to embrace it. When we do, we release the pressure to have all the answers, and instead, we allow ourselves to experience life with greater clarity, compassion, and understanding. This shift in perspective begins with recognizing that uncertainty and impermanence are not obstacles to our happiness. They are essential parts of our journey. By accepting the ever-changing nature of reality, we open ourselves up to a deeper connection with life, one that is grounded in the present moment rather than in the fear of the future. When we resist uncertainty, we resist life itself. We try to control what is beyond our control, and in doing so, we build walls around our minds and hearts. But when we embrace uncertainty, we create space for wisdom to enter. We allow ourselves to live in the present, fully aware of the fleeting nature of all things, and this awareness brings us closer to the truth. Uncertainty forces us to let go of the need for control, which is often rooted in fear. Fear that things won't go as planned, fear that we will fail, fear that we are not enough. But by acknowledging that we cannot control everything, we free ourselves from these fears. We begin to see that failure is not the end, but part of the process of growth. We see that mistakes are simply opportunities for learning, and that every step along the way, whether forward or backward, is part of the unfolding path. In Buddhism, the idea of not knowing is not seen as a gap in knowledge, but as an invitation to open our minds and hearts to the present moment. It's through not knowing that we truly begin to understand. The more we cling to what we think we know, the more closed off we become to new possibilities. But when we release that attachment to certainty, we allow ourselves to experience life as it is, without the filter of preconceived ideas and judgments. This wisdom of not knowing also encourages us to be humble. The more we acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, the more we are able to learn from the world around us. It's in this humility that we open ourselves to true understanding. The desire to know everything can sometimes lead to arrogance, to the belief that we have control over life. But when we embrace uncertainty, we cultivate a sense of humility and openness, which allows us to connect more deeply with others and with ourselves. Buddhism also teaches that uncertainty is a natural part of the human experience. We cannot avoid it, and we cannot control it. Instead of fearing it, we can choose to approach it with mindfulness and awareness. By being fully present in each moment, we can navigate uncertainty with clarity and compassion. We can embrace the unknown without letting it paralyze us, because we understand that life is not about having everything figured out, it's about learning and growing as we move through it. One of the key aspects of living with uncertainty is letting go of expectations. So much of our anxiety comes from the desire for things to be a certain way. We want to know the future, we want to control the outcome, we want to be sure of the path ahead. But life doesn't work that way. It's full of twists, turns, and surprises. The more we cling to expectations, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment. But when we release these expectations and allow life to unfold as it will, we free ourselves from the pressure of trying to control the outcome. We begin to trust that whatever comes, we can handle it. In embracing uncertainty, we also learn to appreciate the beauty of the present moment. So much of our suffering comes from either living in the past or worrying about the future. We get caught in a cycle of regret, fear, and anticipation, always looking backward or forward instead of focusing on the now. But when we accept the uncertainty of life, we are forced to let go of these distractions. We learn to focus on what is happening right now, knowing that this moment is all we truly have. This shift in focus allows us to experience life more fully. Instead of constantly striving for the next big thing, we begin to appreciate the small moments, the simple acts of living, the connections with others, the fleeting beauty of each day. When we stop trying to control everything, we can fully engage with the present, finding joy and wisdom in the process of life itself, not just in the end result. The wisdom of not knowing is also about cultivating a sense of peace amidst uncertainty. The more we embrace the unknown, the less we fear it. Instead of trying to predict what will happen, we learn to trust that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. We trust in our own resilience, in our ability to adapt and learn from life's challenges. This trust comes from recognizing that uncertainty is not something to avoid, it's something to embrace as part of our growth. In Buddhism, this trust is built on the understanding that everything is interconnected. We are not isolated beings trying to navigate life alone. We are part of a vast, ever-changing web of existence, And in this interconnectedness, we find strength. We know that no matter what happens, we are not alone. Life is constantly unfolding, and we are part of that unfolding. The uncertainty we face is not something separate from us, it is part of the natural flow of life, and we are part of that flow. Living with uncertainty also helps us develop greater compassion. When we let go of our need to know everything, we become more open to others and their experiences. We understand that everyone is navigating their own uncertainty, their own challenges, and this creates a sense of empathy and connection. Instead of judging others or trying to fix their problems, we learn to be present with them, to listen, and to offer support without trying to control the outcome. We realize that we are all in this together, and that our shared uncertainty is what binds us. The wisdom of not knowing also teaches us to be patient. In a world that values instant gratification, it can be difficult to sit with uncertainty. We want answers now. We want results immediately. But Buddhism teaches us that wisdom grows over time, and that patience is an essential part of the process. By sitting with uncertainty, we learn to trust that answers will come when the time is right, and that we don't need to rush the process. This patience is not passive, it's active acceptance. It's the ability to stay engaged with life, even when the future is unclear. It's about trusting that every moment is leading us toward deeper understanding, even if we can't see the full picture yet. Patience allows us to move through life without forcing things to happen. It helps us to let go of the need for certainty and to trust that everything is unfolding as it should. As we continue to explore the wisdom of not knowing, we begin to see that uncertainty is not something to fear, but something to embrace. It is in the unknown that we find the space for growth, for learning, and for true wisdom. By letting go of the need for control and certainty, we open ourselves to a deeper connection with life and with each other. And in that openness, we find peace. Life will never be fully predictable, and the more we try to make it so, the more we suffer. But when we embrace uncertainty, we allow ourselves to live more fully, to learn from each moment, and to trust that we have everything we need to navigate whatever comes our way. Uncertainty is not the enemy, it is the gateway to deeper wisdom, compassion, and understanding. And when we open ourselves to it, we open ourselves to the fullness of life. As we've seen, the wisdom of not knowing unlocks the door to deeper understanding and growth. It's through embracing uncertainty that we can open ourselves to the beauty and lessons that life's constant changes offer. But how do we move through this unpredictable world with grace? How do we find peace amidst the chaos, especially when everything around us is in a state of flux? The answer, as Buddhism teaches us, lies in mindfulness and meditation practices that ground us in the present moment and help us ride the waves of change without being overwhelmed by them. Life doesn't stop moving, and the more we try to hold on to stability, the more we increase our anxiety. But when we learn to navigate change instead of resisting it, we can find a sense of calm amidst the turbulence. The Buddhist practices of mindfulness and meditation are tools that help us do just that. They allow us to fully engage with the present moment, without being swept away by the forces of change or the worries of what might come next. Mindfulness is the practice of paying full attention to the present moment without judgment. It sounds simple, but it's powerful. By focusing on the here and now, we learn to step outside the mental chatter that often drags us into the past or the future. In this state of awareness, we begin to see the transient nature of all things. We recognize that everything, our thoughts, our emotions, our experiences, is in constant flux. And when we accept that change is inevitable, we begin to flow with it rather than fight against it. Mindfulness helps us understand that change isn't something we need to fear. Instead, it's a natural part of life that we can learn to navigate with ease. Every moment that we experience is part of the greater rhythm of life, By practicing mindfulness, we become more attuned to this rhythm and develop the ability to move with it. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the waves of change, we learn how to ride them, just like a surfer learns to balance on the water. With practice, we begin to feel more at peace with the natural ebb and flow of life. Meditation, too, plays a crucial role in embracing life's flux. When we sit in meditation, we create space to observe our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them. The process of sitting with our emotions, instead of reacting to them, teaches us to let go of attachment. We begin to see that our thoughts and feelings are not permanent. They come and go, just like the waves on the ocean. This realization is liberating. We no longer need to control our emotions or push them away. Instead, we can simply allow them to arise, acknowledge them, and then let them pass. Through regular meditation practice, we develop a deeper understanding of impermanence, the Buddhist concept that all things are constantly changing. This understanding is essential for cultivating peace amidst life's flux. When we can see that everything, both pleasant and unpleasant, is in a state of change, we stop clinging to moments of happiness or avoiding moments of discomfort. We learn to accept both joy and sorrow, knowing that each will pass in its own time. This acceptance of change brings peace, as we no longer feel the need to control what is beyond our control. In Buddhism, this practice of mindfulness and meditation is not just about cultivating inner peace for ourselves. It's about developing the wisdom and compassion to help others navigate the waves of change as well. When we learn to be present with our own emotions and experiences, we become more attuned to the experiences of others. We develop a sense of empathy as we recognize that others are also facing their own struggles with change. This shared understanding creates a bond, reminding us that we are all interconnected in the dance of life's impermanence. One of the greatest benefits of mindfulness and meditation is the way they help us become less reactive to life's challenges. Instead of being swept away by the intensity of our emotions or the unpredictability of the world around us, we develop a sense of spaciousness within ourselves. This inner space allows us to observe our experiences without judgment, giving us the clarity to respond to life's changes with wisdom and compassion. When we are mindful, we are not controlled by our fears or desires. We begin to see that our worries about the future or our regrets about the past are simply thoughts that come and go. By observing them without attachment, we can create distance between ourselves and our mental patterns. This distance allows us to respond to the present moment with a calm mind, free from the grip of anxiety or frustration. The practice of mindfulness also teaches us to be fully engaged in whatever we are doing, no matter how small or mundane. Whether we are eating, walking, or simply breathing, mindfulness allows us to be present in every moment. This practice helps us to stop rushing through life, constantly looking for the next thing. Instead, we learn to savor the richness of the present moment, no matter what it holds. Life becomes less about achieving or attaining, and more about experiencing and being. One of the greatest challenges in life is accepting the things we cannot change. We often find ourselves struggling against situations that are beyond our control, trying to make them fit into our vision of how they should be. But mindfulness helps us to let go of this struggle. It teaches us that, just as we cannot control the weather or the tides, we cannot control everything in our lives. This realization brings a sense of peace as we stop fighting against the inevitable. Instead of resisting life's changes, we begin to see them as opportunities for growth. Mindfulness teaches us to be fully present in whatever comes our way, knowing that each experience is an opportunity to learn and evolve. Whether we face challenges or moments of ease, each one carries wisdom if we are open to it. This openness is the key to living with peace amidst life's flux. As we embrace the fluidity of life, we also learn to let go of our attachment to outcomes. So much of our stress comes from the desire to control the future, to make things turn out the way we want them to. But mindfulness helps us release this attachment. It teaches us to focus on the process rather than the result. By being present with each step, we trust that the journey will unfold as it's meant to, without needing to force it into a specific shape. Buddhism's approach to embracing change through mindfulness and meditation also helps us cultivate patience. Life doesn't always unfold according to our timeline. Sometimes, things take longer than we expect, or they don't turn out the way we planned. But through mindfulness, we learn to accept the timing of life. We develop the patience to wait for things to unfold naturally without pushing them forward or holding on too tightly. This patience brings peace as we stop rushing through life and allow it to unfold at its own pace. The practice of mindfulness also allows us to experience a deeper sense of gratitude. When we are fully present, we begin to notice the small blessings in each moment. Whether it's the warmth of the sun, the sound of a bird singing, or the taste of a meal, mindfulness helps us appreciate the richness of life. In doing so, we cultivate a sense of gratitude that enhances our well-being and helps us navigate life's changes with a positive outlook. Through meditation, we also cultivate equanimity, the ability to remain balanced and steady, no matter what life throws our way. Equanimity doesn't mean being indifferent or detached from our emotions. It means experiencing life fully without being overwhelmed by it. It's the ability to face the ups and downs of life with grace, knowing that all things, both good and bad, are temporary. Meditation helps us develop this inner stability, allowing us to remain centered in the midst of life's flux. Ultimately, mindfulness and meditation are about learning to live with life's constant changes rather than resisting them. By embracing the flow of life, we find peace. We stop fighting against the current, and instead, we learn to ride the waves with ease. Life's flux is not something to fear, but something to embrace. With mindfulness and meditation as our tools, we can find the calm in the storm, the peace in the chaos, and the wisdom in the unknown. As we've explored the practice of mindfulness and meditation, we've seen how these tools help us find peace amidst the endless flow of change. But even with the best practices, life inevitably brings suffering. No matter how much we try to control our environment, pain, loss, and hardship are unavoidable parts of the human experience. But what if we could shift how we view suffering? What if, instead of seeing it as something to avoid or endure, we began to see it as a form of change, an opportunity to grow and transform? Buddhism offers a radically different perspective on suffering. Rather than treating it as a fixed state or something that simply happens to us, Buddhism teaches us to view suffering as something fluid, something that shifts and changes. When we allow ourselves to experience pain fully, without resistance, it can lead to deeper wisdom, understanding, and ultimately transformation. This is a transformative way of thinking. We live in a world that often tries to protect us from pain, to minimize suffering, and to offer quick fixes for everything that ails us. But in Buddhism, suffering is not something to be fixed or avoided at all costs. It is part of life, part of the human condition. When we resist suffering or try to escape from it, we create more suffering for ourselves. But when we accept it, when we embrace the reality of pain, we begin to understand its true nature, and in that understanding, we find the key to our liberation. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment to things, to people, to ideas, and even to our own desires and expectations. We cling to what we think should be, and when those things change or disappear, we experience pain. But if we understand that everything is impermanent, we can begin to see suffering not as a punishment or a tragedy, but as an inevitable part of life's flow. Instead of fighting against it, we can flow with it, knowing that just as all things change, so too will our pain. Suffering is not a one-time event. It's a process, a cycle that comes and goes. What makes it so difficult to navigate is our attachment to it. We identify with our suffering. We believe it defines us, and this identification makes the pain feel permanent. But Buddhism offers a radical shift. By learning to detach from the labels we place on our suffering, we can begin to see it for what it truly is, a moment in time that will pass. This understanding doesn't make suffering any less real, but it gives us the space to experience it without being consumed by it. When we experience suffering, it often feels like we are stuck in it. We become overwhelmed by the pain, and it becomes difficult to see beyond it. But the Buddhist approach to suffering encourages us to step back and observe it. Instead of reacting to it with resistance or judgment, we can sit with it, observe its impermanence, and allow it to transform. Just as clouds move across the sky, so too does our suffering shift and change. When we allow it to, suffering can become a teacher, guiding us toward greater self-awareness, compassion, and wisdom. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness is essential in this process. Mindfulness teaches us to be fully present with whatever arises, whether it is joy, anger, love, or pain. When we bring awareness to our suffering, we begin to see it in a new light. We realize that suffering is not something separate from us, but a part of our human experience. Through mindfulness, we can see the pain clearly, without judgment or attachment. We can allow it to pass, without clinging to it or running away from it. This is where meditation becomes powerful. In meditation, we practice sitting with our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them. This practice of observing without reacting allows us to build resilience. We learn that just as thoughts come and go, so do our emotions, including pain. Meditation helps us build the mental space to experience suffering without being overwhelmed by it. Through consistent practice, we come to understand that pain does not define us. It's simply a passing experience, just like any other. Buddhism teaches that when we embrace suffering instead of running from it, we cultivate compassion. By acknowledging our own pain, we develop a deeper understanding of the pain of others. We begin to see that suffering is universal. It's something we all experience. This realization opens our hearts, making us more compassionate and less judgmental. We start to feel connected to others in a profound way, recognizing that we are not isolated in our pain, but part of a shared human experience. This shift in perspective doesn't just help us endure suffering, it helps us transform it. The key to transformation lies in our ability to accept and embrace the pain rather than push it away. By fully experiencing suffering without resistance, we open ourselves to the possibility of healing. We begin to see the lessons that pain has to offer, lessons in patience, resilience, and growth. Suffering, in this sense, becomes an opportunity for transformation rather than something to be avoided at all costs. The teachings of dukkha, or suffering, are at the core of Buddhism. The Buddha taught that suffering is an intrinsic part of life, but he also taught that it is not permanent. By following the path of mindfulness, meditation, and non-attachment, we can transcend the suffering that arises from our desires and attachments. We can experience pain, but we do not have to be consumed by it. The key is to understand that suffering is not something that happens to us. It's a part of the process of life, and by accepting it, we gain the wisdom to navigate it. When we allow suffering to pass through us without clinging to it or resisting it, we create space for healing. Healing doesn't happen by avoiding pain, it happens by fully engaging with it. We don't need to run from our emotions, we can face them head-on, allowing them to teach us about ourselves. Through this process, we move from a place of victimhood to a place of empowerment. We realize that we are not helpless in the face of suffering. Rather, we have the power to choose how we respond to it. As we practice embracing suffering, we begin to understand that pain, like everything else, is impermanent. It doesn't last forever. The more we allow it to move through us, the more we realize that it is not something that defines us. We are not our suffering. We are not our pain. We are simply human, experiencing the natural ebb and flow of life's challenges. And through this experience, we gain wisdom and insight that would not be possible without the presence of suffering. The transformation of suffering in Buddhism is not about eliminating pain. It's about learning to navigate it with grace and awareness. Instead of resisting the discomfort, we learn to observe it, to be present with it, and to let it go when it has passed its course. Through this process, we develop a deep sense of inner peace and freedom. We no longer see suffering as something to fear or avoid. Instead, we see it as a catalyst for personal growth, a path to greater understanding and compassion. Buddhism encourages us to see suffering as a gift, not because it feels good, but because it opens the door to transformation. It is through our pain that we can begin to develop the qualities that lead to deeper wisdom, patience, resilience, compassion, and mindfulness. When we embrace suffering in this way, it no longer has power over us. We can move through it with awareness and grace, knowing that, like everything else, it too will pass. The path to embracing suffering is not easy, and it takes practice. But by integrating these teachings into our daily lives, we begin to see that suffering is not something we need to fear or avoid. It is simply part of the flow of life. And when we accept it with an open heart, we unlock the potential for deep transformation. Instead of seeing suffering as something that diminishes us, we begin to see it as something that shapes us, refines us, and ultimately leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As we've seen, embracing suffering doesn't mean resigning ourselves to a life of pain, but rather understanding that it is part of the ever-changing landscape of our existence. In Buddhism, we learn not to avoid or escape our discomforts, but to face them with awareness and wisdom. However, there is another crucial aspect to navigating life's challenges that Buddhism offers, which is the deep and often uncomfortable acceptance of uncertainty. Unlike the world around us, which often seeks to sell us comfort in the form of certainty and security, Buddhism encourages us to live fully with the uncertainty of change, not as something to fear, but as something that can lead us to true peace. We live in a society that promises security in many forms: financial stability, stable relationships, predictable outcomes, and a clear path forward. But the more we seek these guarantees, the more we find ourselves anxiously clinging to what we believe should stay the same. Buddhism, however, doesn't offer false promises of permanence or unshakable security. Instead, it invites us to face the uncertainty that is inherent in all of life and shows us that true peace comes not from avoiding change, but from accepting it fully. By learning to embrace the uncertainty of life, we can find deeper fulfillment and meaning. At first glance, the Buddhist approach to uncertainty may seem unsettling. After all, we've been taught that certainty brings comfort, and that the more we control, the less we have to worry. But Buddhism teaches that this search for control is the root of much of our suffering. The more we cling to the idea that life should be predictable, the more frustrated we become when things inevitably change. In reality, nothing in life is certain, and the sooner we accept this, the sooner we begin to experience true freedom. Buddhism offers us the tools to live with uncertainty, not by forcing us to ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist, but by teaching us to stay present with it. Instead of looking for a permanent solution to our fears or anxieties, Buddhism shows us how to navigate the unknown with grace and resilience. By accepting that we can never know what comes next, we stop living in constant fear of the future and start living more fully in the present. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is the understanding of anicca, or impermanence. Everything changes, and this is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. When we cling to the idea of permanence, we set ourselves up for disappointment because change is the only true constant in life. Instead of seeing uncertainty as a threat, Buddhism teaches us to see it as an invitation to live more freely. By embracing the uncertainty of life, we can experience it as a source of growth rather than a cause of stress. The illusion of permanence creates a false sense of security. We build up lives around the idea that things should stay the same, that our relationships, our careers, or our health will remain stable. But the truth is, nothing stays the same forever. People change, circumstances shift, and life moves in unexpected directions. The more we try to resist this, the more we create suffering for ourselves. However, Buddhism offers us a different perspective. Rather than seeking false comfort in the idea of permanence, we can learn to find peace in the ever-changing nature of existence. When we let go of the desire for certainty, we open ourselves up to the fluidity of life. This doesn't mean we stop planning or that we abandon our goals, but it does mean that we stop demanding certainty in a world that is inherently uncertain. Buddhism doesn't promise us a life free from change, but it offers us the wisdom to navigate change with an open heart. By cultivating mindfulness, we become more aware of the impermanence of all things, and we begin to experience a deeper sense of peace. In Buddhism, we are taught to accept the present moment as it is, without trying to force it into a mold of our own expectations. This acceptance of uncertainty is liberating because it frees us from the need to control every aspect of our lives. Instead of worrying about the future or regretting the past, we learn to fully experience the now. This acceptance of uncertainty helps us to live with greater resilience because we stop reacting to change with fear or resistance. We begin to approach life with curiosity and openness, ready to learn from whatever comes our way. The Buddha himself acknowledged the uncertainty of life when he spoke about the nature of suffering and the impermanence of all things. He did not promise that life would be free from challenges or discomfort, but he offered a path for transcending the suffering that arises from our attachments to things that inevitably change. The Four Noble Truths, which lie at the heart of Buddhist teachings, guide us through the reality of suffering, showing us how to navigate life's unpredictability with wisdom and compassion. Buddhism also teaches us about the importance of detachment, not as a way of distancing ourselves from life, but as a way of freeing ourselves from the need for permanence. Attachment to people, things, or outcomes creates suffering because we want them to stay the same. When we stop attaching ourselves so strongly to the idea that life should remain static, we create space for more fluidity and peace. Letting go of attachment doesn't mean we stop caring or stop working toward our goals. It simply means that we stop clinging to outcomes and are willing to accept whatever happens. Living with uncertainty also means accepting the reality of change in our relationships. Relationships, like all things, are in constant flux. People grow, evolve, and sometimes drift apart. The more we try to control or hold on to people, the more we risk suffocating the relationship. But when we embrace the uncertainty of change in relationships, we can experience greater freedom and authenticity. We stop trying to keep things the way they were and instead allow them to evolve naturally. Buddhism also offers a path to living with uncertainty through the practice of sati, or mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us cultivate awareness of the present moment and reduces our tendency to worry about what might happen next. By practicing mindfulness, we train ourselves to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment or attachment. We become more aware of the fluctuations within us and around us, and we begin to see that nothing stays the same. This awareness allows us to move through life with more ease and less fear, because we understand that change is not something to fight but something to flow with. This practice of mindfulness also helps us understand the impermanence of our own emotions. Just as our thoughts and external circumstances change, so too do our emotional states. When we let go of the need for emotional permanence, we stop getting overwhelmed by our feelings. Instead of clinging to joy or avoiding discomfort, we begin to experience our emotions as transient, recognizing that they, too, will pass. This shift in perspective helps us live with more emotional balance, because we no longer identify so strongly with our feelings. In Buddhism, the key to living with uncertainty is cultivating right view, the understanding that all things are interconnected and subject to change. When we accept this reality, we can stop seeking false comfort in the idea that we can control life's outcomes. Instead, we can start living with a deeper sense of trust, knowing that uncertainty is not something to fear, but a natural part of the human experience. We don't need to know everything. We don't need to have all the answers. By accepting that we live in an unpredictable world, we create space for greater peace and fulfillment. Rather than offering us false promises of security, Buddhism encourages us to embrace the unpredictability of life. It doesn't ask us to abandon our desire for stability, but it asks us to stop believing that stability is something we can control. When we stop expecting life to be predictable, we can begin to appreciate it for the dynamic, ever-changing experience it is. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it means we become more engaged with life, more open to its twists and turns, and more accepting of the beauty that comes from uncertainty. Buddhism's approach to uncertainty is a call to stop clinging to false promises of permanence and security. It teaches us that peace does not come from control, but from acceptance of life's fluid nature. When we embrace uncertainty, we let go of the fear of the unknown and begin to experience life as it truly is, constantly changing, always evolving, and always offering new opportunities for growth. In this acceptance, we find true peace. As we've explored, living with uncertainty and accepting the ever-changing nature of life isn't about resigning ourselves to a passive existence. It's about embracing life as it unfolds and finding peace within its fluidity. However, there's another essential step in this process: understanding the role attachment plays in our suffering. Attachment is one of the main reasons we struggle with change. We attach ourselves to things, people, and even ideas, believing that these things provide us with stability and security. But this attachment is what holds us back from experiencing true freedom. The more we cling to, the more we risk losing, and the more we experience suffering. Buddhism offers us a path to freedom through the understanding of letting go. Attachment isn't just about clinging to objects or material things. It goes much deeper. We become attached to the people we love, to our identities, to our achievements, and even to our ideas of how life should be. These attachments create a false sense of security, leading us to believe that if we just hold on tightly enough, we can control our world. But in reality, this only leads to greater fear and anxiety because, as we've learned, everything is in a constant state of flux. Nothing stays the same forever. People change, circumstances shift, and the world moves forward, whether we're ready or not. When we allow ourselves to become attached to something or someone, we risk the pain of losing it. This pain isn't just about the physical loss, but about the emotional and mental struggle that comes with it. The more tightly we grip something, the more it becomes a part of our identity. Losing it feels like losing a part of ourselves. But Buddhism teaches us that the more we hold on to something, the more we create suffering for ourselves. By letting go, we free ourselves from the weight of attachment and open ourselves up to the possibility of real peace. The first step in this process is recognizing that attachment is not the same as love. We often confuse the two, thinking that to love someone or something means we must hold on tightly, ensure it's protected, and never let it go. But this kind of attachment is rooted in fear, the fear of losing what we value most. True love, according to Buddhism, is not about control. It is about freedom. It's about allowing the person or thing to exist as it is without trying to make it fit into our rigid expectations. True love does not bind. It liberates. When we stop seeing attachment as a form of love, we begin to see how attachment actually limits our experiences. Attachment comes from the belief that we can control or possess something, that it will give us stability. But this stability is illusory. The more we attach to something, the more we become fearful of losing it. We become so focused on holding on to what we love that we forget to appreciate it for what it is. This need for control prevents us from fully experiencing the moment and enjoying life as it is. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent, and when we understand this, we see that attachment to anything is an illusion. When we let go of the need to control, we begin to embrace the beauty of impermanence. Letting go doesn't mean we stop caring or that we become indifferent. It means we stop living in constant fear of loss. We begin to love without expectation, allowing things to be as they are, without trying to mold them into something they're not. By letting go, we also free ourselves from the constant cycle of craving and clinging. Craving is the root of attachment. We crave people, possessions, experiences, and ideas because we believe they will make us happy, bring us security, or give our lives meaning. But the more we crave, the more we are dissatisfied. No matter how much we gain, there's always something more to desire, and each time we reach for something, we tighten our grip on it, setting ourselves up for disappointment. Buddhism teaches that the path to freedom is not through acquiring more, but through letting go of the things that bind us. When we stop grasping at desires, we stop creating new attachments. We learn to live with what we have, appreciating it for what it is, rather than always striving for something else. In this process of letting go, we experience true liberation because we are no longer driven by the need to fill an empty space within us. Instead, we learn to embrace the fullness of the present moment. Letting go of attachment also means letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. So often, our sense of self is tied up in our possessions, relationships, and achievements. We identify with what we own or the roles we play in others' lives. But Buddhism teaches us that this sense of self is not fixed, it is constantly changing. When we let go of the attachments to these identities, we begin to experience life as it is, without the need to label it or define it. One of the most difficult attachments to release is our attachment to the past. We often cling to memories of who we were, what we had, and the people we loved. These memories become part of our identity, and we hold on to them because they provide a sense of continuity and comfort. But the past is gone, and while it shapes who we are, it does not define us. Holding on to the past only prevents us from fully engaging with the present. When we let go of attachment to the past, we free ourselves to live in the here and now, appreciating the present moment for what it offers, without being weighed down by what has already passed. Similarly, we often become attached to expectations about the future. We think that if we just reach a certain point, whether it's a career milestone, a financial goal, or a personal achievement, then we will be happy and fulfilled. But these expectations are also rooted in attachment. When we let go of the need to control the future, we allow ourselves to experience life as it comes, without the burden of trying to force it into a specific outcome. This doesn't mean we stop working toward our goals or that we abandon our dreams. It simply means we stop attaching our happiness and peace to specific outcomes. The act of letting go is not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. It requires mindfulness and practice. Buddhism offers us the tools to develop this practice, tools like meditation, awareness, and contemplation. By cultivating mindfulness, we begin to notice the subtle ways in which we become attached to things. We notice when we're grasping, when we're holding on too tightly, and we learn to release that grip. Through meditation, we learn to sit with discomfort without the need to change it. We become aware of the impermanence of all things, and we learn to accept the ebb and flow of life without trying to control it. Letting go also means letting go of our judgments. So often, we attach judgments to our experiences, labeling them as good or bad, right or wrong. These judgments create suffering because they prevent us from seeing things as they truly are. When we stop attaching labels to our experiences, we begin to see them with greater clarity. We can appreciate them for what they are without the need to evaluate them. This shift in perspective allows us to experience life with more openness and less resistance. As we learn to let go, we discover a profound sense of peace. We no longer feel the need to control or cling to the things we love. We can love freely without fear of loss. We can experience life fully without the constant need for security or permanence. By letting go of attachment, we open ourselves to a deeper connection with the world around us. We stop living in fear of change, and we begin to embrace the flow of life, knowing that everything is in constant motion. In the end, the act of letting go is not about losing what we love. It's about freeing ourselves from the burden of attachment. It's about experiencing life as it is, without the constant fear of loss. It's about learning to love without expectation, to live without clinging, and to find peace in the ever-changing nature of existence. Letting go is the key to true freedom, and when we learn to release our attachments, we open ourselves to a life filled with peace, joy, and fulfillment. Having explored the powerful act of letting go and how it frees us to live in the present without clinging to the past or fearing the future, we now turn to a deeper aspect of embracing life's fluctuations, the concept of stillness. In a world that never stops moving, where change is constant and often overwhelming, how do we find peace amidst the chaos? Buddhism offers us a profound answer: stillness within change. It's a paradox that seems counterintuitive at first. How can we experience stillness in a world that is always changing? We are taught to believe that peace comes from stability, from the things that stay the same. But Buddhism teaches that true peace does not arise from avoiding change. Rather, it arises from finding a deep inner stillness amidst the very change that surrounds us. When we learn to center ourselves in the midst of life's storms, we experience a calm that is unshaken by external circumstances. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools for cultivating this stillness. Mindfulness teaches us to be fully present in each moment, accepting whatever arises without judgment. It doesn't mean we ignore the turbulence around us or pretend that everything is fine. Instead, it means that we acknowledge the chaos and, in that awareness, find a sense of peace. By staying anchored in the present, we are able to experience life's changes without being tossed about by them. This idea of stillness within change can also be seen in the Buddhist concept of equanimity. Equanimity is the ability to remain calm and balanced, regardless of what is happening around us. It doesn't mean that we don't feel emotions or that we detach from the world. Rather, it means that we don't allow our emotions to control us. We learn to experience life fully, its highs and lows, without being swept away by either. Equanimity provides a foundation of peace that allows us to navigate the storms of life with grace. At its core, stillness in Buddhism is not about finding a perfect, unchanging state. It is about finding a deep, grounded peace that can coexist with change. In fact, it is through the acknowledgement of life's impermanence that we come to understand the nature of true stillness. When we stop resisting the flow of life, when we stop trying to control the inevitable, we allow ourselves to sink into a deeper form of calm. The stillness we cultivate through mindfulness and meditation is not an escape from the world, it is a way of engaging with the world in a more balanced and centered way. The paradox of stillness within change also speaks to the nature of our minds. Our thoughts and emotions are constantly shifting, sometimes in ways that feel overwhelming. In a moment of calm, our minds can feel peaceful, but as soon as something disturbs that peace, a stressful thought, an unexpected challenge, or an emotional trigger, we are thrown back into turmoil. But through meditation, we learn to observe these mental fluctuations without becoming attached to them. We begin to see that just as our thoughts change, so too do our emotions and reactions. The key is not to try to stop these changes from happening, but to cultivate the awareness to see them clearly and respond from a place of calm rather than reactivity. This practice of observing change without being swept away by it brings us closer to the stillness that Buddhism speaks of. We begin to recognize that just as the world around us is in constant motion, so too are our internal states. Stillness does not mean the absence of movement, it means the ability to remain steady within that movement. Just like a tree rooted firmly in the earth, we can remain steady amidst the winds of change. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more we learn to find that inner stability, even when everything around us is shifting. In Buddhism, stillness is also deeply connected to the concept of sunyata, or emptiness. Emptiness doesn't mean a lack of substance, it means that nothing has inherent, permanent qualities. Everything is interconnected and constantly changing. This understanding of emptiness frees us from clinging to fixed identities or rigid structures, allowing us to experience life more fluidly. When we understand that everything is empty of inherent permanence, we can begin to experience a sense of peace in the knowing that nothing is set in stone. We can appreciate life as it is, without trying to hold on to it or make it into something permanent. The stillness that Buddhism speaks of also includes a form of deep acceptance. Acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an active, conscious decision to engage with life's challenges as they come, without resistance. When we accept the impermanence of everything, we stop fighting against change. We understand that everything, whether it's a beautiful moment or a difficult one, is temporary, and we learn to embrace each moment for what it is. In this acceptance, we find a profound stillness that is not disturbed by the ups and downs of life. This form of stillness also leads to a deeper understanding of ourselves. As we practice mindfulness, we become more aware of our patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. We begin to see how often we are driven by attachment, whether to people, possessions, or ideas, and how this attachment creates turmoil in our minds. By learning to release attachment and simply observe our experiences without judgment, we begin to experience a deeper level of inner peace. We stop identifying with the ever-changing thoughts and emotions that arise within us, and instead, we come to recognize that our true nature is not tied to these fluctuations. True peace lies in the stillness beneath it all. The practice of meditation plays a crucial role in cultivating this stillness. Through meditation, we create a space where we can sit with our thoughts and emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This space allows us to observe the changes in our mind without becoming entangled in them. As we deepen our meditation practice, we begin to experience moments of profound stillness, moments where the constant chatter of the mind quiets, and we are able to simply be. These moments of stillness provide a sense of peace that transcends the external world. They remind us that, even in the midst of chaos, we can find a place of quiet within ourselves. Stillness is not something that can be forced or fabricated. It is a natural state that arises when we allow ourselves to stop fighting against life's flow, when we stop trying to control every outcome, when we let go of the need to keep everything fixed. We open ourselves up to a deeper peace. Stillness, in this sense, is a state of surrender, not surrendering to the world outside, but surrendering to the truth of our experience. We surrender to the impermanence of life, and in doing so, we find that the more we let go, the more peace we experience. This understanding of stillness within change transforms our relationship with life. Instead of constantly striving to avoid discomfort, to hold on to what we love, or to control what happens next, we learn to let life unfold naturally. We learn to navigate the waves of change without being swept away by them. And in that process, we find that the storms of life no longer have the power to disturb our peace. This is the power of Buddhist stillness, a calm that arises not from avoiding change, but from fully engaging with it. The paradox of stillness within change is not an easy concept to grasp, but it offers us a profound way to live. It teaches us that we can find peace not in the absence of change, but in the ability to remain steady as everything around us shifts. Through mindfulness, meditation, and acceptance, we can cultivate this inner stillness and discover a deep sense of calm that is unshaken by life's inevitable fluctuations. When we let go of the need for control, we allow ourselves to live with a deeper connection to the world around us, and in that connection, we find the peace we've been seeking all along. Having delved into the profound peace that comes from finding stillness amid life's inevitable changes, we now turn to an even deeper understanding of how the very nature of impermanence can guide us toward living more meaningful and intentional lives. Embracing the truth that nothing lasts forever doesn't have to be a source of fear or anxiety. In fact, it can be the key to unlocking a life that is richer, more aligned with our true values, and deeply connected to the present moment. For so much of our lives, we are taught to seek permanence, whether in our relationships, our work, or our achievements. We are conditioned to chase after things that seem stable, things that appear as if they could give us lasting happiness and security. But the more we grasp at these things, the more we distance ourselves from the reality of impermanence. The truth is, life is constantly shifting, and resisting this flow only creates frustration and disappointment. By embracing impermanence, we free ourselves from the need to hold on to things that will inevitably change, and we open ourselves to the possibility of living a more purposeful, fulfilling life. In Buddhism, impermanence is not seen as something negative or something to fear. Instead, it is recognized as one of the fundamental truths of existence. The Buddha taught that everything is in a state of constant change, and once we accept this truth, we begin to experience life with greater clarity and freedom. The reality of impermanence isn't something to avoid or deny. It's something to engage with fully. It's a reality that can help us prioritize what truly matters, allowing us to align our lives with our deepest values and purpose. When we start to accept that nothing lasts forever, we begin to shift our perspective on what it means to live a meaningful life. We stop chasing after external markers of success, like wealth, status, or the approval of others. Instead, we start focusing on what brings us true fulfillment, connection, love, compassion, growth, and wisdom. These are the things that matter, and they are also the things that are in our power to cultivate. The impermanence of all things encourages us to live with intention. When we recognize that time is limited and that our circumstances are constantly evolving, we begin to understand that we don't have forever to pursue what we truly value. This realization doesn't create fear, it creates urgency. It compels us to live with purpose, to focus on what truly matters, and to engage fully in the present moment. The recognition of impermanence invites us to ask ourselves, what do I want my life to stand for? What do I want to give my time and energy to? This awareness guides us away from distractions and helps us prioritize what is meaningful and fulfilling. By embracing the transient nature of life, we also begin to release our attachments to the past. So often, we cling to old memories or experiences, believing that they define us. But when we realize that everything is constantly changing, we begin to understand that our past does not have to dictate our future. We can choose to let go of old identities, old grievances, and old patterns that no longer serve us. This freedom allows us to move forward with a renewed sense of purpose, unhindered by the weight of past experiences. Similarly, the awareness of impermanence helps us to approach the future with a sense of openness. Rather than being paralyzed by fear of what might happen, we can embrace the unknown with curiosity and acceptance. We stop obsessing over what the future should look like, and instead, we focus on how we want to live today. By releasing our attachment to fixed outcomes, we create the space for new opportunities, new experiences, and new connections to arise. Impermanence, rather than being a source of anxiety, becomes a source of freedom. One of the most powerful ways that impermanence shapes a meaningful life is by guiding us to live with a deeper appreciation for the present. When we accept that each moment is fleeting, we stop taking things for granted. We begin to see the beauty in the ordinary, the small moments of connection and joy that we often overlook. This mindfulness doesn't just help us appreciate life more, it helps us make more intentional choices. Instead of reacting to life in a passive way, we become active participants in creating the life we want to live. We begin to take responsibility for how we show up in the world, how we treat others, and how we contribute to the greater good. As we become more attuned to the impermanent nature of all things, we also learn to let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives. The desire to control is often rooted in the belief that we can make life more stable or predictable. But control is an illusion, and the more we try to hold on to it, the more we limit ourselves. When we embrace impermanence, we learn to let go of the need to control outcomes and instead trust in life's natural flow. This trust frees us to make decisions based on our values, not our fears. It allows us to take risks, to be vulnerable, and to move forward with confidence, knowing that whatever comes our way, we can handle it. The acceptance of impermanence also deepens our sense of connection to others. When we realize that all things, including the people in our lives, are subject to change, we are reminded of the preciousness of each relationship. We begin to appreciate the time we have with others without taking it for granted. This appreciation deepens our empathy and compassion as we recognize that all beings are navigating their own path of change. We become more present for those we care about, not focused on what they can do for us, but on how we can be there for them in their own process of growth and transformation. Furthermore, embracing impermanence invites us to cultivate wisdom. When we let go of our attachment to specific outcomes and embrace life as it is, we begin to see things more clearly. We stop getting caught up in distractions and start recognizing what truly matters. This clarity enables us to make decisions that align with our deepest values and desires. We begin to act with purpose, not out of fear or uncertainty, but out of a deep understanding of what brings lasting happiness and fulfillment. Our actions become more intentional, more aligned with our true self, and ultimately more meaningful. The realization of impermanence also encourages us to live in harmony with the world around us. Just as we are constantly changing, so is the world we inhabit. Our environment, the people in it, and the circumstances we face are all part of a dynamic, ever-evolving process. When we understand this, we stop trying to control the world and instead learn to live with it. We adapt, we grow, and we contribute to the collective flow of life in ways that are both meaningful and impactful. Impermanence teaches us that we are not separate from the world around us. We are deeply interconnected, part of the same process of change and growth. In Buddhism, the awareness of impermanence is not just a philosophical concept, it is a call to action. It encourages us to live fully, to embrace each moment as it comes, and to let go of the things that no longer serve us. By accepting the transient nature of all things, we begin to see the world in a different light. We recognize that life's fleeting nature is not something to fear, but something to honor. We start to make choices that reflect our values, that align with our deeper sense of purpose, and that move us closer to the life we truly want to live. Impermanence becomes the driving force behind our growth, our wisdom, and our connection to everything around us. By embracing impermanence, we create lives that are grounded in authenticity, intention, and purpose. We learn to let go of attachments that hold us back, and we begin to live with a deeper sense of freedom and peace. This shift in perspective transforms not just how we experience the world, but how we contribute to it. Instead of focusing on what we might lose, we begin to focus on what we can give, what we can create in the limited time we have. And in doing so, we begin to build a life that is truly meaningful, a life that reflects who we are at our core and what we value most. As we've seen, embracing impermanence and the ever-changing nature of life frees us from the grip of attachment and allows us to live with greater purpose and peace. But to fully understand the depth of this liberation, we must explore a core concept in Buddhism that directly relates to our experience of change, shunyata, or emptiness. It's a term that can be difficult to grasp, yet it offers us profound insight into how everything is interconnected and how we can truly break free from attachment. Rather than seeing emptiness as something void or lacking, it reveals a transformative truth about how all things, including ourselves, are subject to change and impermanence. At its core, shunyata teaches us that nothing has an inherent, unchanging essence. All things, our experiences, our identities, the world around us are not fixed entities, but are instead made up of ever-changing parts. Just as a wave on the ocean exists only as a temporary formation within the flow of the sea, everything in life is a temporary arrangement in the greater unfolding of reality. This realization is liberating. When we see things as they truly are, interconnected and ever-changing, we are freed from the fear and suffering that arise from our desire to control or hold on to them. The concept of shunyata challenges our usual way of thinking about the world. We tend to see things as solid, permanent, and separate. We cling to our identities, our possessions, and our relationships as if they are fixed parts of who we are. But shunyata shows us that everything is in constant flux, and that our attachment to things, people, and even our own self-image causes unnecessary suffering. When we grasp tightly to these transient things, we create mental barriers that prevent us from experiencing the flow of life as it is. In recognizing the emptiness of all things, we can begin to release our attachment and find freedom. This understanding of emptiness is not a call to detach from life entirely or to become indifferent to the world around us. Rather, it's an invitation to engage with life more fully, without the burden of attachment. When we accept that nothing is permanent or fixed, we can appreciate things more deeply for what they are in the present moment, without needing them to be something else. This gives us the freedom to experience life with an open heart, without the fear of loss that often accompanies attachment. Buddhism teaches that attachment arises from the illusion of permanence. We believe that things should remain as they are, that our desires and expectations should be fulfilled, and that our lives should follow a predictable path. But Shunyata reveals that this view is a misunderstanding of the true nature of reality. Everything, from our relationships to our possessions to our thoughts and feelings, is in a constant state of flux. When we let go of the belief in permanence, we begin to see the interdependence of all things, and in doing so, we become less attached to the outcomes and more present with the unfolding of life. The realization of emptiness also deepens our understanding of interconnectedness. When we see that nothing has an independent, permanent nature, we begin to recognize that everything is connected in a web of relationships. Our lives are not isolated from the world around us. Rather, we are part of an ever-changing flow of experiences that influence one another. Understanding Shunyata encourages us to be more mindful of how our actions impact others and the world. It invites us to act with greater compassion, knowing that every person and every moment is interconnected, and that our choices ripple through the vast web of existence. Embracing emptiness frees us from the need to define ourselves by external circumstances. In our culture, we often define ourselves by our job, our status, or our possessions. We believe that these things give us meaning and stability, but Shunyata teaches us that these identities are not inherent to who we are. They are temporary roles we play in the unfolding of life. By letting go of our attachment to these identities, we create space to experience our true selves, which are not bound by labels or expectations. This recognition allows us to live more authentically, free from the need to prove our worth or measure up to external standards. The more we embrace the concept of emptiness, the more we come to understand that our attachment to things, ideas, and people is what creates suffering. Attachment doesn't mean that we don't care for others or cherish the things we hold dear. It means that we stop believing that these things define us or that we can possess them in a way that keeps them static. Life's beauty comes from its impermanence, and by understanding that, we open ourselves to experience it fully. We stop trying to control what cannot be controlled and begin to live with more openness and acceptance. Shunyata also helps us break free from the suffering caused by our mental constructs. We often build stories around ourselves and the world, shaping how we perceive reality. We label experiences as good or bad, right or wrong, and in doing so, we limit ourselves to narrow views of what life can be. Embracing emptiness allows us to break free from these rigid categories. When we see that all things are interconnected and ever-changing, we become less attached to our labels and judgments, and we begin to experience life without the filter of our mental constructs. Furthermore, Shunyata encourages us to accept life as it is, without trying to force it into predetermined ideas of how things should be. This acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means that we actively engage with the world around us, acknowledging that things are always in a state of flux. When we stop clinging to fixed ideas of how life should unfold, we can move with it more gracefully, allowing it to reveal its beauty in its own time and way. The realization of emptiness also allows us to transform our approach to suffering. When we are attached to something, we fear losing it, and this fear often leads to suffering. But when we recognize that all things are impermanent, we can approach pain and loss with a sense of understanding. We no longer need to resist or deny our suffering. Instead, we can sit with it, knowing that it, too, will pass. This understanding provides us with the courage to face difficult situations with a sense of peace, because we know that everything, both joy and sorrow, is transient. Shunyata also offers us a way to let go of expectations. We often set ourselves up for disappointment when we expect life to follow a certain path or our desires to be fulfilled in a specific way. By embracing emptiness, we let go of these fixed expectations. We accept that life is unpredictable and that we can't control the outcome of everything. This shift in perspective allows us to experience greater peace because we stop holding on to rigid outcomes and start embracing whatever comes with an open mind. In Buddhism, the concept of emptiness is not an end, but a means to deeper understanding and liberation. When we recognize that nothing has a fixed, unchanging essence, we can begin to see the world with fresh eyes. We no longer need to cling to the familiar, to the things that seem permanent or stable. Instead, we engage with life as it is, fluid and ever-changing, and in doing so, we find freedom. Freedom from attachment, freedom from fear, and freedom to live fully in the present moment. The understanding of shunyata is not just intellectual, it's a transformative practice that requires us to let go of old ways of thinking and being. It challenges us to release our attachments and see the world with clarity. The more we practice this awareness, the more we experience life's richness without the burden of attachment. We can love deeply, live fully, and engage with the world without clinging to it. Embracing emptiness opens us to the beauty of impermanence, allowing us to live with more freedom, wisdom, and peace. By seeing the interconnectedness of all things, we release ourselves from the cycle of attachment and suffering and step into a more liberated, meaningful way of being. Having explored the liberating power of emptiness and the impermanent nature of all things, we now come to an essential practice in Buddhism that helps us internalize these truths, the four reminders. These simple yet profound reflections offer us a daily guide to accepting the inevitable changes of life, including the most difficult truth of all, our own mortality. While the awareness of impermanence can seem unsettling, Buddhism offers us the four reminders to help us transform this awareness into a source of peace, wisdom, and action. The first reminder is that life is short and that death is inevitable. This may seem like an uncomfortable truth to confront, but in Buddhism, it's not a cause for fear or sadness. Rather, it's an invitation to live more fully. When we remember that our time in this body is limited, we are motivated to use our time wisely. We start to recognize the preciousness of each moment and the importance of living in alignment with what truly matters. Death isn't something to shy away from. It is a natural part of the cycle of life that should inspire us to live with more presence, more intention, and more compassion. The second reminder is that we are constantly subject to the law of cause and effect, or karma. Every action, word, and thought creates an impression that ripples out into the world. The awareness of karma invites us to live more consciously, knowing that our choices have real consequences, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. When we reflect on karma, we realize that our time is too precious to waste on actions that don't align with our deepest values. We start to see that every moment offers us an opportunity to create positive ripples in the world, whether through small acts of kindness, mindfulness, or self-reflection. The third reminder is the reality that nothing lasts forever. This reminder helps us accept the transient nature of all things, both the good and the bad. It encourages us to fully appreciate the fleeting moments of joy and beauty in our lives without clinging to them. At the same time, it reminds us that hardship, pain, and suffering are also temporary. Just as we can't hold on to moments of happiness, we can also take comfort in knowing that difficult times won't last forever. This acceptance of life's ebbs and flows allows us to let go of unnecessary attachment and to cultivate a more relaxed, open-hearted relationship with whatever comes our way. The fourth and final reminder is that we are the only ones responsible for our own actions. This is a powerful reminder of personal responsibility and agency. It encourages us to look inward for the source of our peace, happiness, and suffering. No one else can live our lives for us, and we cannot rely on others to provide us with the fulfillment we seek. This reminder invites us to take ownership of our choices and to recognize that we are empowered to shape our lives through our actions, intentions, and mindset. When we remember that we are responsible for our own well-being, we are more likely to make decisions that are in alignment with our deepest values. Together, these 4 reflections provide a balanced and practical framework for living with awareness and acceptance of life's impermanence. By incorporating them into our daily practice, we can begin to shift how we engage with change. Instead of fearing it, we start to embrace it as a natural and inevitable part of life's unfolding. Each reminder helps us confront a different aspect of impermanence, our mortality, our choices, the fleeting nature of experience, and our personal responsibility. Together, they create a holistic approach to accepting life and death as they are, rather than as we wish them to be. To integrate these reminders into daily life, we don't need to constantly dwell on the negative aspects of impermanence. Rather, we can approach them with a sense of gratitude and mindfulness. Each reflection can serve as a gentle nudge to stay present, to live consciously, and to act with intention. For example, reflecting on the inevitability of death might inspire us to be more present with our loved ones, to express our appreciation, and to avoid wasting time on regrets or trivial concerns. Reflecting on karma may encourage us to practice kindness and integrity, knowing that our actions have a far-reaching impact. Reflecting on the transience of all things can help us cultivate a deeper sense of peace as we let go of our attachment to outcomes and open ourselves to life's flow. And remembering our personal responsibility can empower us to take proactive steps toward creating the life we desire, while accepting the things we cannot change. These reminders aren't meant to be morbid or depressing. They are tools for freeing ourselves from the fear of change and uncertainty. In fact, they encourage us to live with more vigor and purpose, because we recognize that our time and energy are precious. They inspire us to make choices that are in harmony with our true values and to live in alignment with our deepest truths. As we reflect on the 4 reminders, we come to realize that life is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be fully engaged with, knowing that every moment is an opportunity to cultivate peace, wisdom, and compassion. The practice of these reminders also has a profound effect on our mental and emotional well-being. When we reflect on the reality of change, we begin to let go of the need to control life's outcomes. We stop seeking stability where it doesn't exist and instead learn to trust the process of life. This trust leads to greater emotional resilience, as we stop resisting what is happening and instead learn to flow with it. We develop a sense of inner peace, knowing that we don't have to have everything figured out. Life's impermanence, instead of being a source of anxiety, becomes a teacher of acceptance. In Buddhist teachings, the 4 reminders are also seen as a way to deepen our compassion for others. When we accept the inevitability of death and the transient nature of all things, we come to recognize that others, too, are navigating these same truths. We begin to see the interconnectedness of all beings as we share in this universal experience of impermanence. This realization naturally leads to greater empathy and understanding. We learn to let go of judgment and instead offer kindness, knowing that everyone is doing their best to navigate this ever-changing world. These reminders can also be powerful tools for reducing our attachment to material things. We often place a great deal of importance on our possessions, careers, and social status, believing that these things define us or bring us happiness. But when we reflect on the impermanence of all things, we begin to see how transient these attachments are. We realize that nothing external can provide lasting fulfillment. This realization encourages us to focus on cultivating internal qualities, love, wisdom, and compassion that remain steadfast even in the face of change. Moreover, the 4 reminders encourage us to live with greater clarity and mindfulness. They help us prioritize what truly matters in our lives and to engage with it fully. we begin to ask ourselves deeper questions about how we want to spend our time and energy. Are we living in alignment with our values? Are we being the person we want to be? Are we making the most of the time we have? These reflections lead us to a life that is intentional, purposeful, and deeply satisfying. By incorporating the 4 reminders into our daily practice, we shift from a mindset of resistance to one of acceptance. We begin to embrace the flow of life's changes and to approach them with open hearts and minds. These reminders don't offer false promises of security or permanence, but they do offer us something even more powerful: the freedom to live with greater peace, wisdom, and compassion, no matter what comes our way. Ultimately, the 4 reminders provide us with a transformative framework for engaging with life's impermanence. They teach us to accept change, embrace uncertainty, and live with intention, all while deepening our connection to others and to the world around us. As we reflect on these reminders and integrate them into our daily practice, we come to realize that the transient nature of life is not something to fear, but something to honor, for it is through this impermanence that we find the true meaning of life. As we've explored the 4 reminders and the transformative power of accepting change, we now arrive at one of the most difficult and profound aspects of life: loss. Loss is perhaps the most poignant reminder of impermanence, and it's something we all face at different points in our lives. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, a relationship, a job, or even an aspect of ourselves, grief is an inevitable part of the human experience. In our culture, grief is often something we try to avoid or suppress, but Buddhism offers a path to healing by teaching us that loss is not something to resist, but something to be embraced as part of the natural flow of change. Grief is often seen as something we must get over or move past, but Buddhism invites us to rethink this approach. In Buddhist philosophy, grief is not something to be fixed, but something to be understood and integrated into the fabric of life. Rather than running from our grief or trying to escape it, Buddhism teaches us to face it with awareness, to sit with it, and to allow it to unfold in its own time. This process of acceptance is not about erasing the pain or pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about acknowledging that grief, like all emotions, is part of the cycle of life, and by accepting it, we can heal more fully. The Buddhist understanding of loss centers around the idea of impermanence. Everything we hold dear, everything we depend on, is subject to change. People come and go, circumstances shift, and the things we attach ourselves to are not permanent. This truth can be painful, especially when we experience loss. But Buddhism teaches us that this truth is not meant to cause suffering. Rather, it's a reminder that everything is in a constant state of flux. By accepting that loss is part of this process, we can begin to find peace in the midst of our grief. Grief, in Buddhist terms, is a natural response to loss, but it's also a powerful tool for growth. When we lose something, we are forced to confront our attachments, whether to people, places, or ideas. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering. It's our desire to hold on to things, to make them permanent, that causes pain. In the face of loss, we are reminded that nothing can last forever, and that includes our attachments. By acknowledging this, we begin to release our grip on what we've lost and open ourselves to the healing power of acceptance. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the practice of mindfulness. And this practice plays a central role in how we navigate grief. Mindfulness invites us to be present with our emotions, without judgment or resistance. When we're grieving, we often try to suppress our feelings or distract ourselves from the pain. But mindfulness teaches us to sit with our grief, to experience it fully, and to let it move through us. By being mindful of our grief, we allow ourselves the space to feel it deeply, but also to release it when the time is right. This doesn't mean that grief disappears, but that it no longer has the same power over us. It becomes something we can observe and process rather than something that overwhelms us. Another key aspect of Buddhist teachings on loss is the practice of non-attachment. While this concept can often be misunderstood as a call to detach from everything, what it really means is that we learn not to cling to things as though they define us. Our relationships, our accomplishments, and our possessions are not permanent, and when we attach our sense of self to them, we set ourselves up for pain when they inevitably change or fade away. Buddhism teaches us that true freedom comes not from holding tightly to things, but from understanding that our identity is not bound to them. Loss, in this sense, is a reminder that our true nature is not rooted in the external world, but in our ability to embrace change and find peace within ourselves. Buddhism also teaches that the experience of loss is not just an individual process, but a shared human experience. The Buddha himself acknowledged that suffering is universal and that everyone faces the pain of loss at some point in their lives. This shared experience can be a source of connection rather than isolation. In Buddhist practice, we are encouraged to cultivate compassion not only for ourselves, but for others who are also suffering. When we understand that loss is a part of everyone's journey, we can approach our grief with a sense of shared humanity. This empathy for others helps to dissolve the feeling of being alone in our pain and allows us to see that we are all navigating the same waves of change and impermanence. Moreover, loss can be a teacher of impermanence. It reminds us of the fragility of life and the importance of living with awareness. When we experience loss, it forces us to reassess our priorities. We often find that the things we thought were important, status, material wealth, or even achievements, lose their significance. What remains are the things that truly matter: love, connection, kindness, and presence. Loss teaches us to be more present, to appreciate what we have while we have it, and to live with greater intention. This shift in perspective helps us to align our actions with our deepest values and to approach each day with greater clarity and purpose. The Buddhist approach to loss also invites us to explore the impermanence of our thoughts and emotions. Just as our external circumstances are constantly changing, so are our internal experiences. Our thoughts and feelings arise and pass away like waves on the ocean. When we're grieving, it can feel as if the pain will last forever, but Buddhism reminds us that everything is temporary. This doesn't mean that grief isn't real or that we should ignore our pain, but it helps us to see that, like all emotions, grief will ebb and flow. It will change shape, and in time, it will lessen. Understanding this impermanence helps us to face grief with more acceptance, knowing that it is not a permanent state, but a process of healing. In Buddhist practice, meditation plays an essential role in processing grief. Meditation allows us to sit with our feelings in a calm and focused way, without judgment or resistance. When we meditate on our grief, we create space for it to arise, without trying to push it away. We allow ourselves to feel the sadness, the anger, or the regret, and we observe these emotions with compassion. Through meditation, we learn not to identify with our grief, but to see it as just one part of our experience. This mindfulness practice helps us to detach from the intensity of grief, allowing it to move through us without overwhelming our entire being. One of the most liberating aspects of Buddhism's approach to loss is its emphasis on acceptance. Rather than resisting the natural process of grief or trying to find a quick fix, Buddhism encourages us to accept loss as a part of the cycle of life. By accepting loss, we stop fighting against the inevitable, and we allow ourselves to process the pain in a healthy and productive way. This acceptance doesn't mean that we like or enjoy the experience of loss, but it allows us to navigate it with a sense of peace and clarity. we begin to see that loss is not the end, but a natural transition that leads us to deeper understanding and growth. Finally, Buddhism offers us a profound lesson in resilience. The path of grief is not linear, and it's different for everyone. We may feel anger, sadness, confusion, or even relief at different times during our journey. But Buddhism teaches that resilience is not about avoiding pain or bouncing back quickly. It's about staying present with our emotions, allowing ourselves to feel fully, and trusting that healing will come in its own time. By approaching grief with patience and mindfulness, we begin to cultivate a sense of inner strength that helps us move through the pain and emerge with greater wisdom and compassion. Ultimately, Buddhism's approach to loss teaches us that grief is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced as part of the natural flow of life. It is through our grief that we learn the most profound truths about ourselves, our attachments, our values, and our capacity for love and compassion. By accepting loss and sitting with the pain it brings, we can find healing and transformation. Through mindfulness, meditation, and acceptance, we come to understand that grief, like everything else, is impermanent. And in that understanding, we find the path to peace. As we have seen, the Buddhist approach to grief and loss teaches us to accept the inevitable changes of life, using them as opportunities for growth and healing. This acceptance of change is deeply rooted in the principle of anicca, or impermanence, which not only helps us navigate the turbulence of loss, but also provides the key to true freedom. When we fully grasp the depth of anicca, we unlock the potential for liberation from suffering, because to understand impermanence is to understand the nature of all things, including our own experiences, emotions, and attachments. Anicca is a fundamental teaching in Buddhism, and it is often described as one of the three marks of existence, alongside dukkha, suffering, and anatta, non-self. These three teachings point to the core reality of our lives. The world around us, the people in it, and even our own thoughts and feelings are all subject to change. Everything is in a constant state of flux. The more we try to hold on to things, the more we suffer when they inevitably shift or disappear. The wisdom of anicca lies in the profound realization that everything, whether it brings joy or pain, is fleeting. It's only when we deeply understand and accept this truth that we can begin to experience true freedom from suffering. When we think about impermanence, we often imagine change as something outside of our control. We see change as something that happens to us, something that disrupts our peace and stability. But in Buddhism, understanding anicca leads us to a deeper awareness. Change is not something that happens to us, but something that is happening all the time, everywhere, in every moment. Our resistance to change is what creates suffering, not the change itself. When we let go of our attachment to fixed outcomes or to the things we cling to for comfort, we begin to live more freely, more authentically. One of the most powerful aspects of anicca is its ability to transform our relationship with fear. Fear is often rooted in the desire to prevent change. We fear the unknown because we are attached to how things are right now. But when we deeply accept that everything changes, we can start to live with a sense of peace, knowing that nothing is permanent, not even our fears. The impermanence of life means that we are never stuck, never trapped by our circumstances. What might seem like an insurmountable challenge today will change tomorrow, just as moments of joy or success will also eventually fade. When we understand that both pain and pleasure are transient, we begin to experience a sense of equanimity, an inner calm that is not shaken by external circumstances. At the heart of anicca is the realization that change is not just inevitable but also natural and necessary. The cycles of birth, growth, decay, and death are fundamental to the fabric of existence. The very fact that we are alive means we are part of this cycle. By resisting the flow of this natural rhythm, we create unnecessary tension within ourselves. Anicca teaches us that true freedom comes not from fighting against change, but from learning to move with it, to adapt to it with grace and mindfulness. This teaching of impermanence is also deeply connected to the Buddhist concept of non-attachment. Attachment arises when we try to hold on to things that are inherently unstable. We attach to relationships, material possessions, achievements, and even our own identities because we want to feel secure. We want to believe that something will remain constant in a world that is constantly changing. But attachment to these things creates suffering. When we lose them, as we inevitably will, we experience pain and grief. The understanding of Anicca teaches us to let go of our attachment to these things, not because they are unimportant, but because they are not permanent. When we embrace impermanence, we are freed from the fear of losing what we hold dear, because we understand that loss is part of life's natural process. One of the most transformative aspects of understanding Anicca is its impact on how we experience time. So often, we are either caught in the past, clinging to memories and experiences, or we are anxious about the future, fearful of what's to come. But when we understand that everything is in a constant state of change, we begin to live more fully in the present moment. The past is gone, and the future has not yet arrived. The only reality we can fully experience is the present. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we become more present, more mindful, and more able to enjoy life as it unfolds in front of us. We stop waiting for the perfect moment to arrive, and we begin to appreciate the beauty of each moment as it is. Understanding Anicca also helps us to let go of our need for control. The desire to control our circumstances and the people around us is rooted in the belief that we can make life more predictable and stable. But this desire for control is an illusion. The more we try to force things to remain the same, the more we experience anxiety and frustration. Anicca teaches us that life is beyond our control, and when we release our need for control, we experience a sense of freedom. Instead of fighting against the changes that come our way, we begin to trust in the process of life, knowing that everything is unfolding as it should. We let go of the need to force outcomes, and instead we embrace the flow of life with a sense of trust and acceptance. Another key aspect of Anicca is its role in fostering compassion. When we deeply understand that all things are impermanent, we come to recognize that everyone and everything is subject to change. This understanding helps us see the interconnectedness of all beings. Just as we experience the ebb and flow of emotions, circumstances, and relationships, so too does everyone else. This recognition of shared impermanence opens our hearts to others. We begin to approach others with greater compassion and empathy, knowing that they, too, are navigating the challenges of an ever-changing world. By embracing Anicca, we learn to meet others where they are, without judgment or expectation, recognizing that we are all in this together. Anicca also helps us shift our perspective on success and failure. In a culture that often values achievement, recognition, and the accumulation of material wealth, it's easy to become attached to these external markers of success. But when we understand the impermanence of all things, we begin to see that success and failure are not permanent states. Both rise and fall like waves on the ocean, and we are not defined by either. Success is fleeting, and failure is temporary. By embracing Anicca, we learn to approach both success and failure with equanimity, understanding that neither defines us. What matters is how we respond to these experiences and what we learn from them. This perspective helps us let go of the pressure to succeed at all costs and invites us to find meaning in the journey itself rather than in the outcome. The practice of meditation is one of the most powerful ways to deepen our understanding of anicca and to integrate it into our daily lives. In meditation, we learn to observe our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations without attachment or judgment. We begin to see that these mental and physical states are also impermanent. Just as a thought arises and fades away, so too do our emotions and sensations. Meditation helps us cultivate a sense of spaciousness within ourselves, allowing us to observe the constant flux of our inner experience without becoming overwhelmed by it. Through this practice, we learn to sit with change, not just as a concept, but as a lived experience. We begin to internalize the truth of impermanence and find peace in knowing that everything, including our thoughts and feelings, will pass. Anicca is not just a philosophical concept, it is a living, breathing truth that can guide us toward ultimate freedom from suffering. When we truly understand the impermanence of all things, we are no longer enslaved by attachment, fear, or desire. We learn to live with greater freedom, allowing life to unfold naturally and without resistance. We let go of our need to control, and instead, we trust in the flow of change. This acceptance of impermanence allows us to live more fully, more authentically, and with greater compassion for ourselves and others. By embracing anicca, we come to understand that freedom is not found in permanence or stability, but in the fluid, ever-changing nature of life itself. As we've delved into the impermanence of all things and the profound wisdom that comes from embracing change, one key question remains: how do we move from fear of change to a place of acceptance and even growth? We've all felt it, the tightening in our chest when faced with uncertainty, the resistance that rises when something we've held dear begins to shift. Fear of change is perhaps one of the most natural human reactions, but Buddhism offers us not just a way to cope with change, but a path to use it as an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth. By transforming our fear into a more fluid and open mindset, we can step into life's ever-changing dance with confidence and grace. Buddhism recognizes that fear, particularly fear of change, is often rooted in attachment. We fear losing what we know, what feels stable, and what we believe defines us. However, when we view change through the lens of attachment, we see it as a threat rather than a natural part of existence. Fear arises when we cling to the illusion of permanence, when we believe that life, people, and experiences should stay fixed and unchanging. Buddhism teaches that true peace and growth come when we can let go of this attachment and see change not as something to fear, but as a tool for transformation. The key to transforming fear into flow is understanding that change is not an enemy, but an inevitable process that is part of the larger tapestry of life. Just as we would not fear the rising and falling of the tides, we need not fear the changes in our lives. By accepting change as a natural force that helps shape our personal journey, we open ourselves to its potential for growth. Change can be the doorway to new opportunities, new ways of thinking, and new experiences. But we must first be willing to face it with open arms instead of clenched fists. Buddhist teachings offer practical wisdom for turning fear into flow. One of the most powerful tools is mindfulness. Through mindfulness, we cultivate awareness of our thoughts, emotions, and reactions without judgment. When fear of change arises, mindfulness teaches us to observe it without becoming overwhelmed by it. Instead of allowing fear to control us, we can step back, observe the fear, and let it pass without attaching to it. This practice helps us move beyond the grip of fear, allowing us to respond to change with clarity rather than reactivity. Another transformative tool Buddhism provides is the practice of non-attachment. Attachment to our current circumstances, our ideas of how things should be, or even our expectations about the future can all fuel fear. When we identify too strongly with these attachments, we create a sense of insecurity because everything around us is constantly shifting. Buddhism teaches us that our true nature is not defined by external circumstances, and therefore we don't need to hold on so tightly to what we perceive as stable. Instead, by releasing attachment, we allow ourselves to flow with change rather than resist it. This doesn't mean we stop caring or stop making plans. It simply means that we stop depending on things staying the same for our sense of peace. In addition to mindfulness and non-attachment, Buddhism offers the practice of impermanence as a tool for transforming fear into growth. When we reflect on the fact that everything changes, our emotions, our thoughts, the people we love, our circumstances, we come to understand that nothing is truly permanent. This recognition might initially seem unsettling, but over time, it frees us from the fear of losing what we hold dear. When we understand that all things are temporary, we learn to appreciate them fully in the moment, knowing that the value of our experiences is not dependent on their permanence. This practice helps us embrace the natural flow of life with a sense of ease, knowing that everything, both the good and the challenging, will eventually change and pass. The concept of suffering or dukkha in Buddhism is another lens through which we can transform our fear of change. Change, in its essence, is not the cause of suffering. Our resistance to change is what creates it. When we resist change, we push against the natural flow of life, creating friction. By learning to let go of this resistance, we can reduce suffering. Buddhism teaches us that suffering is a natural part of life, and that accepting it, rather than fearing it, can lead to liberation. When we acknowledge that pain and discomfort are part of the human experience, we stop trying to avoid them at all costs and instead learn to face them with awareness and equanimity. Buddhism also introduces the concept of embracing uncertainty as a way to transform fear into flow. Many of our fears about change are tied to our fear of the unknown. We fear the what-ifs, the uncertainties of life's unpredictable nature. However, Buddhism teaches that the unknown is not something to fear, but something to accept. Life is inherently uncertain, and when we try to control every outcome, we create stress and anxiety. By accepting uncertainty, we free ourselves from the need to know everything and open ourselves to the possibilities that life has to offer. This shift in perspective can help us move through life with greater peace, knowing that we don't need to have all the answers to experience happiness and fulfillment. Buddhism also encourages us to see our fear of change as an opportunity to cultivate compassion. When we are afraid of change, we often withdraw, focus inward, and become consumed by our own discomfort. But by opening our hearts to others, we begin to see that they too are navigating the same uncertainties. This shared human experience of change and fear can create deeper connections as we recognize that we are not alone in our struggles. Compassion allows us to face the fear of change, not just with mindfulness and acceptance, but with empathy for others who are on similar journeys. By turning our focus outward, we transform our own fear into an opportunity to connect, heal, and grow together. Another important Buddhist practice that helps us transform fear into flow is right view, one of the elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right view is the understanding of the nature of reality, including the impermanence of all things. When we hold a clear understanding of reality, we begin to see fear for what it truly is, a natural reaction to the unknown, but not a permanent or insurmountable force. By cultivating right view, we can step back from our fear, observe it, and move forward with greater clarity. Fear loses its power when we understand that it is not an inherent part of us, but a temporary feeling that can be transformed through mindfulness, awareness, and right understanding. Living in the flow of change also requires patience, a practice that Buddhism teaches us is essential for growth. Often, we want things to happen quickly, and the uncertainty of change can feel unbearable when we don't have immediate answers or results. Buddhism teaches us that growth takes time and that we must be patient with ourselves and the process of life. Patience allows us to remain steady during times of change, trusting that the unfolding process is as valuable as the end result. It's through the process of learning, adapting, and changing that we grow, sometimes in ways we didn't expect, but always in ways that serve our greater good. Through all these teachings, Buddhism helps us transform fear into a path of growth by shifting our perspective on change and uncertainty. Rather than seeing change as something to fear, we begin to see it as a teacher, one that invites us to step into life with greater awareness, compassion, and resilience. Fear becomes less of an obstacle and more of an opportunity to practice mindfulness, to release attachment, to embrace uncertainty, and to cultivate compassion and patience. By transforming fear into flow, we not only navigate change with greater ease, but we also discover a deeper sense of freedom and peace. When we stop resisting change and instead welcome it, we open ourselves to the vast potential of personal and spiritual growth. And in that openness, we find the courage to live fully, with a heart that is free from fear and full of possibility. As we have explored the many ways in which Buddhism helps us transform our fear of change into opportunities for growth, one truth becomes increasingly clear. Life is full of extremes. We experience highs and lows, joy and sorrow, stability and chaos. It can often feel like we are being pulled in different directions, trying to navigate the ever-shifting tides of our existence. But Buddhism offers a powerful antidote to the stress and confusion that comes with these extremes, the middle way. This path offers us a balanced approach to life's fluctuating nature, allowing us to find peace and clarity amid the chaos. The middle way, as taught by the Buddha, is not about avoiding extremes or seeking comfort in mediocrity. Rather, it is about finding the balance between two opposite forces. It invites us to let go of our tendency to swing between extremes, such as indulgence and self-denial or attachment and aversion. Instead, we are encouraged to find a balanced, harmonious approach to life, one that allows us to navigate change with wisdom, patience, and resilience. In today's world, we often find ourselves swinging between extremes. We may find ourselves overindulging in comfort and pleasure, believing that this will bring us lasting happiness. On the other hand, we might go to the extreme of self-denial, thinking that by suppressing our desires, we will somehow find peace. But both of these approaches lead to suffering. Overindulgence creates attachments and a constant craving for more, while self-denial leads to frustration and a sense of emptiness. The middle way teaches us that neither extreme leads to lasting peace. Instead, it is through balance and moderation that we can find true freedom. The Buddhist middle way offers us a roadmap for navigating the fluctuations of life, especially when we face the extremes that come with change. It is easy to get caught up in the emotional highs and lows of life, whether it's the excitement of a new relationship or the despair of loss. These emotional extremes can cloud our judgment and lead to reactive behaviors. The middle way teaches us to observe our feelings without becoming attached to them or allowing them to control us. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to sit with both the joy and the pain, the success and the failure, without being swept away by them. This awareness helps us maintain our inner balance, no matter what external circumstances may arise. One of the most powerful teachings of the middle way is its emphasis on avoiding both self-indulgence and self-mortification. This concept is rooted in the Buddha's own experience. Before his enlightenment, he tried both extremes, a life of luxury and indulgence as a prince, and a life of extreme self-denial as an ascetic, neither path brought him lasting peace or understanding. Through his own journey, he realized that the path to true wisdom and peace lies in the middle, neither seeking pleasure at all costs, nor punishing oneself through deprivation. In the middle way, we find the space to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us, without falling into the traps of excess or deficiency. This balanced approach also extends to how we engage with the world. In a society that often pushes us to either fully embrace or fully reject certain ideas, behaviors, or emotions, the middle way offers us a more mindful path. It asks us not to react impulsively, but to consider the greater context of each situation. Whether it's a difficult conversation, a stressful situation at work, or a conflict with a loved one, the middle way encourages us to find a response that reflects wisdom and compassion, rather than a reaction born from fear, attachment, or aversion. In this way, we navigate change with more clarity and less emotional turbulence. The middle way also guides us in how we respond to our desires. Our desires are often at the root of our suffering. When we chase after external things, hoping they will bring us lasting happiness, we are constantly disappointed. But on the other hand, if we reject our desires entirely, we run the risk of denying our humanity and becoming disconnected from the world around us. The middle way teaches us that we don't need to reject or deny our desires, but rather to approach them with awareness and moderation. When we are mindful of our desires, we can make choices that are in alignment with our deeper values, rather than being driven by impulsive cravings. This balanced approach allows us to live more authentically and peacefully, without being controlled by the endless cycle of desire and dissatisfaction. Similarly, the middle way can help us navigate the fluctuations of our thoughts and emotions. We all experience moments of intense emotion, whether it's happiness, anger, sadness, or fear. When we allow ourselves to become consumed by these emotions, we are pulled into extremes. However, the middle way teaches us to observe these emotions without identifying with them. By practicing mindfulness, we can notice the rise and fall of our feelings without getting swept away by them. This awareness allows us to respond with greater wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting out of habit or impulse. In this way, the middle way helps us cultivate emotional balance and resilience, even in the face of life's challenges. The Buddhist middle way also emphasizes the importance of moderation in our actions. Whether it's our work, our relationships, or our personal goals, it's easy to swing between extremes of overworking ourselves or neglecting our responsibilities. We might push ourselves to exhaustion in pursuit of success, or we might avoid effort altogether, hoping that things will work out on their own. The middle way teaches us to find a balanced approach, where we apply ourselves fully to our tasks without becoming consumed by them. This moderation leads to greater peace and productivity, as we are no longer caught in the extremes of overexertion or procrastination. One of the most profound aspects of the middle way is its ability to bring us into alignment with our true nature. When we live in extremes, we disconnect from who we truly are. We lose touch with our deeper values and our sense of purpose. But by practicing the middle way, we begin to see more clearly. We learn to align our actions with our values, to act with compassion, and to move through life with a sense of inner peace. This alignment creates a deeper sense of meaning and fulfillment, as we no longer feel pulled in conflicting directions. The middle way helps us find a steady, balanced path that reflects our true self and purpose. The middle way is not about perfection, it's about balance and awareness. It's about recognizing that we don't need to escape the fluctuations of life, but rather we can meet them with mindfulness and presence. By avoiding extremes and cultivating moderation in our thoughts, actions, and emotions, we develop the resilience and clarity to navigate the inevitable changes and challenges that life presents. The middle way offers us a way to experience life with greater peace, knowing that change is a natural and necessary part of the journey. Incorporating the middle way into our daily lives transforms the way we approach everything from the small decisions we make to the larger challenges we face. It encourages us to live more consciously, to respond with wisdom and compassion, and to find balance in all aspects of life. By embracing the middle way, we can move through life's changes with greater ease, finding peace and wisdom in the process. As we've explored the middle way and how balance brings clarity and peace in the face of life's ever-changing nature, we now turn our attention to a powerful yet often misunderstood aspect of change: disruption. Disruption can be jarring, unsettling, and even terrifying at times. But Buddhism offers us a transformative perspective. It shows us that chaos, while difficult, can be the very catalyst for spiritual awakening and personal growth. Instead of seeing disruption as a negative force to avoid, Buddhism teaches us to embrace it, recognizing that it's often through the greatest upheavals that we are able to step into new, more authentic paths. Disruption is an undeniable part of life. Whether it comes in the form of an unexpected crisis, the breakdown of a long-held belief, or the unraveling of our plans, it has a way of shaking us to our core. At first, it can feel like the world is falling apart, as if the very foundation upon which we've built our lives is crumbling. We often resist this kind of change, grasping for the familiar, hoping that things will return to how they were. But in Buddhist teachings, disruption is not something to resist. It is an opportunity to transform, to shed old skins, and to rise anew. It is a signal that we are ready to evolve. In Buddhism, the concept of dukkha, or suffering, is central. But suffering is not something that simply happens to us. It is a result of our attachment to things, our resistance to change, and our desire for permanence in a world that is constantly shifting. Disruption exposes the fragility of these attachments, forcing us to confront the truth that nothing in life is guaranteed. When we are willing to face this discomfort, we can experience it not as suffering, but as a powerful teacher, one that shows us what needs to change, what needs to be let go of, and what needs to be embraced. The Buddhist path encourages us to see disruption as a mirror that reflects the truth of our lives. When the familiar is taken away, when the structures we've built begin to collapse, we are left with ourselves. It is in these moments of disruption that we are called to go inward, to examine what we've been holding on to, and to ask ourselves whether these attachments are still serving us. In this way, chaos becomes an invitation to let go of false identities, unhealthy patterns, and outdated beliefs that no longer align with who we are becoming. Instead of resisting disruption, we can use it as a tool for self-reflection and spiritual awakening. This perspective on disruption transforms the way we experience life's challenges. We begin to understand that these moments of upheaval are not obstacles to our peace, but opportunities for growth. Every disruption, every shift in our world is a chance to build a new foundation, one that is more aligned with our true self. When we embrace disruption, we stop seeing it as something to avoid and start viewing it as a stepping stone to a deeper, more authentic life. It is in chaos that we find the fertile ground for renewal. Buddhism teaches that true transformation comes when we let go of the need to control the external world. We cannot prevent disruption from happening, and we cannot always control the way it unfolds. But we can control how we respond to it. In the face of chaos, the path of mindfulness and awareness offers us a way to stay grounded. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to be present with the discomfort, to sit with the uncertainty, and to respond to disruption with clarity rather than fear. This inner stillness amidst chaos is what allows us to navigate even the most turbulent times with grace and wisdom. Disruption also brings us closer to the realization of impermanence, the understanding that everything is in a constant state of change. While this can initially feel destabilizing, it is ultimately liberating. When we fully grasp the reality of impermanence, we begin to let go of the false belief that we can control everything. Instead of clinging to the past or striving for a future that may never materialize, we learn to embrace the present moment as it is. Disruption teaches us that change is not the enemy, but a natural part of the cycle of life. In this acceptance, we find freedom. By learning to navigate disruption with mindfulness and awareness, we cultivate a deeper sense of resilience. Each time we face a chaotic moment, we build our capacity to remain steady and present. We stop reacting impulsively or giving in to fear. Instead, we face disruption with an open heart, knowing that it is not here to break us, but to help us grow. Over time, we begin to see disruption not as a random event, but as an essential part of our spiritual journey. It is through chaos that we learn to step into our true power and potential. One of the most powerful aspects of embracing disruption is its ability to break down our sense of self. We often identify too strongly with our roles, our possessions, or our achievements. When disruption shakes these foundations, it challenges our attachment to them. This can be painful, but it is also an opportunity for liberation. By letting go of these external identifiers, we are free to reconnect with our deeper sense of self, one that is not defined by circumstances, possessions, or accomplishments. This process of shedding old identities is uncomfortable, but it is essential for spiritual growth. Buddhism encourages us to approach disruption with equanimity, the ability to remain calm and balanced no matter what happens. This does not mean we suppress our emotions or deny our feelings. Equanimity is about being present with all of our experiences, whether joy or pain, without letting them overwhelm us. When we cultivate equanimity, we are able to ride the waves of disruption without being tossed around by them. We learn to meet life's fluctuations with acceptance and mindfulness, knowing that both the highs and the lows are temporary and part of the ever-unfolding process of change. As we embrace disruption, we also develop a deeper sense of compassion. When we experience chaos in our own lives, we begin to recognize that others are also struggling with their own forms of disruption. This shared human experience of change and uncertainty connects us to one another in a profound way. Through this recognition, we are called to cultivate compassion for others who are facing similar challenges. By offering empathy and support, we not only help others navigate their own disruptions, but we also heal ourselves. Disruption teaches us that we are not alone in our struggles, and in this realization, we find strength and connection. Finally, embracing disruption helps us to live more authentically. When we let go of the need to control outcomes or hold on to what we've known, we open ourselves to new possibilities. Disruption shakes us free from our old ways of thinking and being, creating space for something new to emerge. This process of personal transformation is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary for our spiritual evolution. By accepting disruption as a natural and necessary part of life, we allow ourselves to evolve, to grow, and to step into new paths that reflect who we truly are. In the end, the transformative power of disruption lies in its ability to wake us up to the impermanent, interconnected nature of life. It teaches us that change, while often uncomfortable, is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. By navigating disruption with mindfulness, compassion, and acceptance, we can transform life's most chaotic moments into opportunities for spiritual awakening and personal growth. Disruption, in all its forms, becomes a powerful catalyst for transformation, one that frees us from our attachments, our fears, and our illusions, guiding us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As we've seen, the transformative power of disruption invites us to embrace the chaos of life as an opportunity for growth, self-reflection, and spiritual awakening. Disruption teaches us that change, though often unsettling, is a natural part of the cycle of existence. In this light, another truth emerges, one that is as inevitable as change itself: mortality. Death, though it can evoke fear or discomfort, is a fundamental part of the human experience. Yet, in Buddhism, the awareness of mortality is not something to avoid, it is something to embrace fully. It is through this radical acceptance of death that we can begin to live with greater clarity, purpose, and acceptance. Buddhism offers us a profound perspective on mortality, urging us not to shy away from the reality of death, but to use it as a guide for living. When we confront the truth that our time is limited, we are more likely to live with intention. The awareness of mortality helps us recognize the preciousness of each moment, the fleeting nature of our experiences, and the importance of aligning our actions with our deepest values. In this way, death becomes a teacher, not an enemy. The Buddhist approach to mortality encourages us to let go of our fear of death. Fear of death often arises from our attachment to the idea of permanence. We fear that we will lose what we have, that everything we hold dear will come to an end. But Buddhism teaches that attachment itself is the source of suffering. When we cling to the idea that life should remain unchanged, we create tension and fear within ourselves. By accepting the reality of impermanence of both life and death, we free ourselves from this fear. Death is not something to resist, but something to understand and accept as part of the natural cycle of existence. This awareness of death also helps us to confront our attachments and illusions. So often, we define ourselves by external factors: our possessions, our relationships, our achievements. We believe that these things are permanent, or at least that they will remain stable long enough to bring us happiness. However, when we bring the awareness of mortality into our lives, we are reminded that nothing is permanent. Our possessions will fade, our relationships will change, and our own bodies will grow older and eventually pass away. This recognition shifts our focus away from external markers of success or stability and turns our attention inward. We begin to understand that true peace and fulfillment come not from clinging to things, but from cultivating inner peace, wisdom, and compassion. Buddhism teaches that death is not the end, but a continuation of the cycle of life. This belief in samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, helps us view death not as a final termination, but as part of an ongoing process of transformation. When we accept death as a natural part of life's flow, we stop seeing it as something to fear or resist. Instead, we see it as a necessary step in the journey of existence, one that allows for renewal and growth. Death becomes a part of the natural rhythm of life, and in this acceptance, we find peace. One of the most profound aspects of Buddhist teachings on mortality is the practice of mindfulness of death. By contemplating our mortality, we are reminded to live with awareness. Each moment becomes more precious because we know it is fleeting. Instead of postponing our dreams or waiting for the right time to act, we are encouraged to live fully in the present. The awareness of death helps us focus on what truly matters: our relationships, our growth, and our contributions to the world. It helps us recognize that life is not a dress rehearsal, but the only opportunity we have to make a difference, to live authentically, and to cultivate love and compassion. The awareness of mortality also brings with it a sense of urgency, not in the sense of panic or rush, but in the sense of recognizing the impermanence of all things. We begin to ask ourselves, What is the legacy we want to leave? What kind of person do we want to be? How do we want to spend our time? This contemplation pushes us to let go of trivial distractions and focus on what really matters. It inspires us to live with purpose, to create meaning in our lives, and to contribute to the well-being of others. Buddhism also teaches that by contemplating death, we learn to appreciate life more deeply. It helps us to focus on the present moment, rather than being preoccupied with the past or the future. When we are mindful of the fact that our time is limited, we begin to savor life more fully. We stop taking things for granted, and we start to experience gratitude for the small moments, whether it's a conversation with a loved one, a moment of quiet reflection, or a walk in nature. Each of these moments becomes more meaningful when we understand how fleeting they are. The Buddhist approach to death also invites us to develop a sense of detachment. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about people or things, but it means that we stop attaching our sense of identity and security to them. We realize that everything is temporary, and in this realization, we are freed from the fear of losing what we have. Death teaches us to hold things lightly, to appreciate them without clinging to them. This detachment allows us to experience life with greater freedom and joy, because we no longer depend on external things for our happiness. Instead, we learn to cultivate an inner peace that is not dependent on circumstances. In Buddhism, death is also a reminder of the interconnectedness of all beings. The awareness of our mortality helps us see the impermanence of all life. When we recognize that everything, including ourselves, is in a constant state of flux, we begin to appreciate the preciousness of each moment and the value of each connection. This recognition deepens our sense of compassion as we see that everyone is subject to the same cycle of life and death. We begin to understand that our time with others is limited, and this inspires us to be more present, more loving, and more kind. The acceptance of mortality also encourages us to live more simply. In a world that constantly encourages us to accumulate more, do more, and be more, the awareness of death brings us back to what is essential. We begin to see that true happiness does not lie in external achievements or possessions, but in the quality of our relationships, the depth of our inner peace, and the extent to which we live in alignment with our values. This simplicity of focus allows us to let go of unnecessary distractions and cultivate a life that is truly fulfilling. In the Buddhist tradition, impermanence and mortality are not to be feared, but embraced. They offer us the opportunity to live more fully, to appreciate the present moment, and to connect with others on a deeper level. By accepting that death is a natural part of the cycle of life, we release our attachment to permanence and open ourselves to the freedom that comes with living in the present. This awareness of death doesn't diminish the value of life. Rather, it enhances it, reminding us that each moment is precious, each relationship is meaningful, and each opportunity is worth embracing. Ultimately, the radical acceptance of mortality as taught in Buddhism provides us with a profound sense of peace and clarity. When we understand that death is not an end, but a continuation of the cycle of existence, we are free to live without fear of loss. The acceptance of impermanence leads us to a life that is full of purpose, compassion, and mindfulness. It teaches us to let go of what no longer serves us, to embrace the present moment, and to live in a way that is aligned with our deepest values. In this way, the awareness of death is not something that diminishes life, but something that enriches it, helping us live more authentically and with greater appreciation for the time we have. As we've journeyed through the teachings of Buddhism on impermanence, we've come to realize that nothing in life stays the same. Change is the only constant. From learning how to accept suffering, to embracing loss, and understanding how to transform fear into growth, Buddhism offers us the tools to live with clarity, purpose, and peace in the face of life's ever-changing nature. By embracing the reality of impermanence, we unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us, freeing us from attachment, fear, and the need to control what we cannot. The path to acceptance is not about avoiding change, but about meeting it with an open heart and a grounded mind. Whether through mindfulness, compassion, or the deep recognition that all things, including our struggles and joys, are temporary, Buddhism teaches us to flow with life's changes rather than resisting them. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What is one lesson from these teachings that resonates with you the most? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. I always love reading your reflections. And, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insights and inspiration on living a life of peace and purpose. Let's continue this journey together.